Hello and welcome to the UIM E1 World Championship presented by PIF as we come to the fourth round of 2026 taking place in Monaco. This stunning venue to enjoy as it is the third year that E1 has come to this part of the world. We've got 10 teams competing to be champions of the water in 2026, and we're about to go into the second stage of qualifying. I'm Ben Edwards. With me is former E1 pilot and race winner, jet girl Anna Glennon. And Anna, we are looking forward to a very unpredictable part of qualifying as we prepare for them to try and deal with this layout, which at Monaco is not proving to be terribly straightforward. And we've seen two teams, Miami and Rafa, not quite be able to make it. We've only got the top 8 teams now going through to the next stage, and then we'll be looking to see the top 4 as the top 3 score some points.
The conditions here in Monaco are really making things interesting, and I think that there's potential to see the entire board just get flipped upside down, and so far that's already been the case, especially with Team Brady barely squeaking by in that Q1 session.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to shape up to be a really interesting quali day and potentially an even more exciting race day, because it's technically not even the weekend yet, and we're already seeing a ton of leisure boats really mix things up on the track for these guys.
It's wonderful to watch, yes, and it has been a challenge, as you say, for Team Brady to get that 8th place. I was surprised. It was Emma Kimalainen doing a great job there to get through into that point. Okay, so we are looking forward to when they will be basically swapping pilots from one session to the other, and it will we'll be seeing 4 coming out in a moment, and then another 4, and then it will be the slowest 2 from the 8 in total that will not then make it through into the next stage. So much to look forward to going into the next parts of qualifying here. We are getting all ready for Q2 at Monaco as the teams are building up to try and score some points in qualifying today. 3 points for the fastest qualifier, but we've still got several stages for them to get through and deal with the Monaco layout, which is so beautiful, so stunning, but it is a challenge too. It has proved to be very bumpy in places. We've lost a couple of teams that have not made it into that session. Unfortunately, Team Miami and Team Rafa will not be around, but we do have a bunch of teams that are getting ready to go out there. And Anna, you've competed around this for 2 years. Tell us, what is the challenge of getting around here?
While the track itself has not changed much over the last few seasons, the race conditions at this particular location are changing so much. And I think a lot of that has to do with, one, the leisure boat traffic coming in and out of the marina here, and then also the fact that we're a lot closer to the shoreline than we are at a lot of other race venues. So we get all of this turbulence, and then not only are the pilots hitting it on one section of the track, as they approach the other side of the track, it's bouncing back off the shoreline. So we've seen a lot of the pilots struggling with the 2 sectors with the longest straightaways as they're trying to navigate those big waves. And then the other critical element is keeping the momentum through the corners as well as you're navigating those conditions. So I think what we've seen today is that the faster pilots are the ones that had a little bit smoother conditions and were able to navigate through that. In the last session where we saw Brady struggle right here on this section of the track, Emma Kimalainen went for a rodeo ride in that race bird, and I don't even think it was an issue with the race bird. It was just the fact that the conditions were so out of control. So it's going to take a lot for these pilots to adapt as they work their way through this racetrack.
And we've just got the one layout today, but when we get into the races, we'll have a short lap and a long lap. But that's something we can look into tomorrow more for the racing, because it gives them a bit of clear space and sometimes changes the order. But here we are with Team Brady. So it is Sam Coleman this time who will be going out for Team Brady, and they've just made it into this level, thankfully, after that excellent job by Emma Kimalainen. But now they're all in the same situation. I think that Team Brady could well be nearer the top level again.
Coming out of that last session, the meter really resets, so Team Brady has the opportunity to kind of take a deep breath here. They made it into the next session, so hopefully they can improve here, but I'm curious to see if the conditions are going to get better or worse. It has the opportunity to go either way, so we could see any kind of shake-up in these next few sessions.
And that can make a difference, as you say, because they rated as 8th, so they go first. We go in reverse order, effectively now, going through to the next stage. Let's take a look at the lineup then, as how this actually goes together for this part of qualifying as we go into Q2, and Team Brady will be going first with Sam Coleman. Alula will be out there with Rusty Wyatt, and then we've got Sierra with Katie Munnings, and we've got Drogba with Micah Wilkinson. So they were the lowest four from the combined qualifying, because the earlier part of qualifying was combining the performance of both pilots. This time though, you just got the one pilot going through this stage, and if they make it to the next stage, it'll be the other pilot.
So if you're wondering how some of these pilots ended up in this position at the lower half of the bracket, looking at Team Sierra, they had some technical issues earlier on in the day. They actually lost the bottom half of their foil and had to reset from there. And then from there, interestingly enough, even with the new foil, Eric Stark was still struggling at the lower end of the spectrum on the lap time. So we find Katie here. They did manage to make it through, but struggling a little bit there. With Team Drogba, Micah had some very fast laps in the rough conditions earlier, but unfortunately Tara Pacheco was not able to match his pace, so we find Micah here. And then with Team Brady, I think more than anything, it was just the unfortunate luck of the draw on the conditions. We have not heard from their team that they're having any issues with the boat, but the pilots were complaining about the conditions. So that's generally where we've ended up here. And then with Team Alula, again, I think it was just a matter of the conditions, because the boat looks good. They look very fast in the corners, but when it came to the straightaway, they were falling off the foils. So hopefully these teams and these pilots are able to regroup and come up with something a little bit better to move them up through the standings.
Absolutely. And you were looking at Drogba a moment ago. Team Drogba, they have been struggling in the series so far this year. Although, funnily enough, Dubrovnik, for example, last time out, they finished 8th overall, but they got fastest lap. So, it just shows that every now and then they have definitely got the performance. Michael Wilkinson on board and can be very quick, but as a team, they just haven't quite managed to make it work as well as they would like. But Monaco's worked well for Drogba in the past, because back in 24, when you were competing here, they finished 2nd in Monaco.
Yeah, this will be a little bit different. I think at that previous time they had a different pilot lineup. So this is a little bit newer with Micah here at the wheel. But Micah, I can't say enough about his driving style. He's very exciting because he always looks like he's on the ragged edge, but he's still going so fast.
Right, so this session is about to get underway, and it will be Team Brady, Sam Coleman, I believe, that will be going first, because effectively, as they were rated as 8th in that first group, we get the reverse order. Yeah, we go. And Sam Coleman, who we know is extremely talented, and Team Brady, they are currently 2nd in the championship, 12 points off the top team of Westbrook. Here we go. Let's see how the start runs.
Looking at it now, Sam already has a better drive than he did earlier. There weren't any big leisure boats kind of waiting in the wings there. So as of right now, he looks pretty good. He's on the boost coming over the line there. Looks like it did upset the boat a little bit, but it's early. He still has time to recover and make a good lap out of this.
He's backed off the boost initially just for a moment and then back onto it again. That's often the way, isn't it?
Like I said earlier, the rough parts of the track, if the boat is out of the water and the propeller doesn't have the grip, there's no point of being on the boost. You're just wasting it at that point. So getting back off the boost and allowing the boat to kind of recenter and get back to grip, then you can get back on the boost. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time.
The cornering is such a talent as well, because you've got to drop it, try and turn it without it rocking around too much. He's doing pretty well.
You can see on that last corner, he leaned a little bit too far into the corner and got the water up over the wing, and that can create a lot of drag, but using the boost there can help with that. This is the other particularly tricky section of the track. As you come around that yellow smart mark, the direction of the waves shift. The racebirds are headed straight into the waves instead of parallel, and you can see Sam Coleman struggling with that right now. The boat is dipping into those waves, slamming down off the foils, and it's really slowing him down.
It is, but this is going to be difficult for everybody, isn't it? Because of the way the water is right now, it's much more challenging than it was at the beginning.
That's the beauty of this particular style of racing, is everybody has to deal with this. And I don't think that particular section is necessarily being influenced by a particular variable on each lap, because every single lap people are struggling with that section.
So as you can see, as he comes across, it's actually at a 118.7. We've just been confirmed. 118.7, which is actually quite impressive, because they were struggling to get under 120 in the last run that we saw. So I think 118.7 is a good start, but until we see the others coming out, we just cannot predict it.
It's a good sign for them, though, because we saw Sam was falling off the foil a lot. He was struggling with keeping the boat stable, and they're still running a solid lap time. So if they're able to work on the stability of the boat and kind of work their way through that issue, we could see a very fast Team Brady make a comeback.
Okay, so they've set the initial pace, and next up it will be Team Alula that will be heading out, and it's Rusty Wyatt at the wheel for Team Alula. Team Alula currently third in the championship, so they are definitely front runners as well. Oh, we've got a red flag. There could be a delay.
It looks, we're not 100% certain what it could be. It could be a safety issue. There could be some leisure boats that have wandered their way onto the racetrack. We'll let you guys know as soon as we have a good understanding of what's going on, but this will cause a little delay here, and when you're sitting in the cockpit, that can be a little bit strenuous because you've kind of already got everything planned in your mind, and it slows you down a little bit, but we should be able to get these guys re-racked and moving again pretty quickly. But my guess is here in Monaco, we have some leisure boats drift into the track every once in a while, and to maintain the safety of our pilots, we hold off. We
are seeing a few boats in there in the background. There's the red flag. As you say, we don't know exactly why just yet, but there is a little bit of a delay here for Rusty Wyatt, who is all prepared to come out. Team Brady have done their one as well.
So we're hearing from the paddock that the radios have actually gone down, the communication to the race birds. They're no longer able to get a hold of the pilots. So because of safety reasons, they're working on getting those radios back online. The radios are really critical here. You know, there's limited visibility inside the cockpit, so being able to communicate with not only your engineer, but race control is a huge safety factor. So making sure the pilots are as safe as possible. We're going to make sure that those radios are back online. So the pilots are sitting right now waiting for the radios to come back on, and then we're going to get things rolling again.
Yeah, that is so important, and I totally do get that. Very important to get that sorted out. So Rusty Wyatt is waiting for the opportunity to come out, so is Katie Munnings for Team Sierra. And I think Sierra, I mean, they did struggle a bit early. It's great to see that they got into the top 8, but they've had a bit of an issue with that boat, and whether they're going to be able to get through this stage, that could be a bit of a challenge.
We heard from Team Sierra earlier that they actually had the rear foil break, so that level of catastrophic failure can really affect the handling of the boat. And shockingly enough, Katie, who was probably struggling with the broken foil during her qualifying laps, turned a lap that was not terrible. It was roughly like a 118 when she was out there. I'm not sure if the foil gave way while she was driving or after. We're not 100% certain, but dealing with an issue like that can really slow you down, and she still maintained a pretty good pace. They went back in between the sessions, changed out the foil, got a brand new one, and interestingly enough, Eric Stark's lap time was still slower than Katie's was with a 121 with a brand new foil. So curious to see if that is just them trying to pivot on the settings with a new foil, if it was a matter of the conditions, or if it's just Eric struggling with the changes. So curious to see if Sierra Racing can make it happen. We have Katie Munnings back out now. She was the faster of the two pilots in the earlier session, so let's see if she can make it better.
Absolutely. And Sierra backed by Carl Kuzma, the basketball player, and Thibaut Courtois, the goalkeeper. And I believe Carl Kuzma is around Monaco this weekend, so that will be an opportunity for us to see one of the team owners connect with him over the weekend.
I heard that as well. You know, Monaco is definitely one of the kind of crown jewels of the series, and a lot of the celebrity team owners like to make an appearance here, and it provides a lot of added pressure on the pilots because winning in Monaco is such a big deal.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, Team Sierra, knowing that one of their team owners is here, I'm sure that they are pressed to have good results, especially coming off of worse results earlier. But they're not the only ones with that added pressure. We have a whole slate of celebrity guests here this weekend, so I think it's going to be very exciting. You can see now Emma Kimi-Leinen actually has, I'm sorry, that's Sam Coleman, has his cockpit open. Monaco's has another unique challenge where the heat is one of the worst elements here. Out of all the places that we race on the tour, this place is so hot, and in the cockpit there's no cooling. There's also no cooling vests, no way to cool the pilots down, and it can get over 100 degrees in that cockpit, and as they're sitting on this red flag here, those pilots are just cooking. So opening that hatch will allow a little bit of air circulation in there and hopefully cool Sam Coleman down here as they wait.
Yeah, you can see from the weather on the screen now that it's just a fraction under 30 degrees C. But as you say, when you're inside the boat, it's a very different story.
There's no shade, there's no garage. The race birds are outside all day. A lot of teams have gotten very creative in coming up with ways to cool the cockpit in between sessions. But when the pilot actually goes out for the session, there's not really anything keeping them cool. There is a fan inside that works with helps kind of keep some circulation going, but it doesn't necessarily act like an air conditioner. So you can tell Sam's got a little sweat pool in there. He's probably not feeling the best, but hopefully we get him on track here shortly.
Wave height 0.3 meters, and it's proving to be quite a challenge out there, isn't it? Because the waves that we are seeing, and we saw just now when he was heading around, the bouncing around, the control you have to hold of that is so demanding.
This is the biggest difference between Monaco and Dubrovnik, where we were at the last round, is that this is a lot more like a bathtub, where we have not only the shoreline, but also like a pier or a breakwater where there's waves also bouncing off of there. So we have the waves kind of coming from several different directions instead of just coming into the shore like they were in Dubrovnik. So as you'll see when the pilots go out in just a little bit, there are points on the track where the waves are shifting direction. So on one side of the track, they're running parallel with the waves. As they enter the corners, they're going into the back side of the waves. And then as they come across the opposite section, they're kind of drifting with the waves. So they really need to be on their toes as they navigate those changes. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. It's a challenging place here. Dubrovnik was pretty smooth most of the time until we got to the very end, the finals. It did get a bit tougher then. But that is the nature of E1. You never quite know what it's going to be like. Interesting pictures going on there.
Danny Close, definitely one of the biggest hams in the pits. We just never know what that guy's going to do. But when he gets in the race bird, he's all business. But I feel for Sarah, who has to put up with his shenanigans all the time.
Absolutely. Sarah Mizia Vaz, who is the teammate to Danny Close for Aoki. And yeah, we shall see how it all goes for them. They will be out in the next group because they have set the overall fastest time together in qualifying so far. No points, yes, of course, because you've got to get through Q2, Q3 and into Q4. You've got to be the top 4 fastest to get any opportunity of scoring points today. And of course, so much of today is about learning, about the conditions, about what makes the boat work in terms of the setup, the pilots understanding everything so that when we get into the races tomorrow, then they can really establish where they need to be.
To kind of expand on some of Aoki's success here, you know, their particular team is very powerboat foundational. They have a lot of people on their team that are from the powerboat racing world. Team principal and also alongside her, Matilda Weiberg is kind of at the helm of this team. She was one of the pilots that helped teach all of the pilots on the grid how to drive the Racebird, and she's also a very accomplished powerboat racing world champion herself. And then alongside her is Alberto Comprato, who is also a very talented F1 powerboat racing driver. So you have two people kind of at the helm here to guide these pilots. And it's very interesting because they are one of the only teams that doesn't have powerboat racing background in the drivers. They both have two car racers in the cockpit, whereas other teams have like a strong watercraft lead, or both of them have a watercraft background. So while the drivers themselves don't have the watercraft background, the team behind them does. And I think that really lends well to them on the water, because when they deal with conditions, when they deal with traffic, when they deal with strategy, Matilda and Alberto have so much experience between the two of them, and apparently have the ability to help them and communicate that to these two pilots. So I definitely think that there's a lot to be said about having a strong team behind you.
Yeah, that makes a huge amount of sense. We're still waiting here. We've still got this red flag patch as we are. Now, it's just been taken away. I've been shown that there is a green flag. So it does look as though Team Alula, Rusty Wyatt, is going to be able to set off any moment now. And of course, because this is qualifying, it's not delaying racing, it's just delaying a flying lap, an opportunity to get a flying lap. And they each get 2 opportunities to do a flying lap. So you can do 1 flying lap, you then have to come off, pause, and then go out for the second one. But as you can see, we've still got plenty of minutes, still nearly 17 minutes left in this session. You're riding on board with Rusty Wyatt, the 31-year-old Canadian, as he now sets off for Team Alula.
It looks like the luck of the draw has let Rusty Wyatt have some pretty clean water here. I don't see any big boats coming in. He's got good charge here right now. Ride height looks good, and he's navigating those rollers pretty well. Looks like the wing on the left stuck a little bit, but approaching the starting line, he's looking okay.
Yeah, just dipping a bit on the exit though, and that will cost him a touch of time.
It looked like right about the time he elected to hit the boost, he came off the foil. So like I was saying earlier, sometimes getting on the boost can make the boat surge forward and make you kind of drop down if you're not hot on the setting. So that may have been what just happened to Rusty. You saw very quickly he got back off the boost, so that should hopefully help. But you can see these rollers are just massive. The Racebird is not a small watercraft, and you can see it just falling into these huge kind of craters. Big up for Rusty there. This is a rodeo, and Rusty is stuck in the middle of it. Wow, we're dealing with some huge rollers. There is not much Rusty Wyatt can do there.
No.
That is just huge rollers, possibly comparable to Dubrovnik at the last round, but he's still doing his best to maintain the momentum. But I think, like I said earlier, we're going to see the conditions get much worse today.
That's really interesting. I haven't seen it as rolly as this until now, and it's definitely struggled. He did a good first sector, but the second sector he's just now lost out to what Sam Coleman has done already. So I don't think this is going to be as quick as Team Brady have done so far. The only one time we have in this session, but as you say, it can keep changing all the time. Could get even more difficult.
Very unfortunate for Rusty. It was just a matter of the conditions at hand. I don't think this lap is going to look very good for him, but he does have another opportunity. The difficulty here is when you're running parallel with the waves like he was on the start straight, you have the opportunity to kind of control where the boat is going and avoid those big rollers and kind of work your way through them. Whereas when you're headed into the backside of the waves, the only way out is through.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get the settings just right. It's a lot like trying to steer a teeter-totter, where the front of the boat is moving around a lot, and if the settings aren't in the right place, it's going to make the boat bounce, and there's not much you can do about it.
He's lost 7 seconds there to what Team Brady had done to Sam Coleman. So yeah,
you can see here, watch as he dips up into the air. That's him coming across the backside of the roller there, and there's not much you can do. Like I said, when the boat's riding fairly low, it's just going to make right here, you'll see the nose rides up the backside of the wave, and it's like driving up a ramp. And it just sends the Racebird into the air. And there's not much Rusty can do there when the waves get that tall. If the waves are a little bit shorter, you can try to adjust the nose to avoid that. But here, the rollers are so deep that it's basically like he just drove up the backside of the ramp.
When you've been competing in events like this, and you're launching up and down like that, the vision actually gets quite tricky almost sometimes, especially when you're coming into the corners.
Absolutely, the vision gets quite difficult, and the other thing with powerboat racing is if you get high enough up in the air and you're still on the gas, the propeller will just start spinning without any load on it, so you really have to be cautious. It's hard to tell in the Racebird if the propeller is out of the air or not, so you kind of have to judge by feel, and you don't want to spin that propeller to the moon.
So we've now got Katie Munnings competing for Sierra, get her first run in. Remember the pace at the moment, the best pace in this group is a 118.7 that was set by Sam Coleman. She's gone through the first sector reasonable. Let's keep an eye on this difficult section that we saw very difficult for Rusty Wyatt a moment ago.
It's interesting, you can see Katie actually on and off the throttle, and that may be what we were talking about earlier, where when the waves are getting rough, she's trying to not spin the propeller up too high. Hopefully she's not having an issue, but she did look like she navigated that a little bit better, so that may just be a matter of settings. She's definitely applying the boost in small dosages, and I imagine that's to try and keep this thing stable, but looking like a good charge right there for Katie Munnings.
Yeah, that actually looks quite clever. It looks like they've been working on where these rolls are, and she's done certainly a better middle sector than Rusty Wyatt. Not quite as rapid as Sam Coleman, but there is a good opportunity to go second fastest so far out of the 3 that we've had. And as you say, I think quite clever work with the throttle and the boost on this one. She's coming up towards the line now. She's not going to be in the 118s, but is she going to beat the 125? Actually, that last sector, yes, only just. That last sector wasn't great, but she has gone second fastest of the 3.
I definitely think that drive along the shoreline is where we're going to see a lot of people losing time and how they navigate that area. So I think that's going to come down to settings and also just luck and timing on where those rollers are at when they arrive on that section of the track. So Katie managed it very well. You know, she was not in the air as much as Rusty Wyatt was. If you're in the air, you're not going fast. So Katie did a much better job of keeping the boat moving forward by keeping the propeller in the water, whereas Rusty was just really sending it. I don't think it was intentional. I think he just really got into a big crop of rollers there. So we'll see how the rest of the session looks, but I do think that we're going to see progressively rougher conditions as we make our way through this Monaco race.
Right, so the 4th of these to do their first lap in this session. They will get a second lap in this session as well. Is Team Drogba, and it's Michael Wilkinson who's got to go for it now.
Micah's definitely one of the most aggressive pilots that we have on the grid. He really pushes the race grid settings. He really drives the thing on the ragged edge. So I'm curious to see if he can maintain that level of driving in these rough conditions. That's much easier to do when it's flat, and that is not the condition that we have here today. So if Micah's able to maintain that crazy aggressive driving style in these conditions, I will be super impressed.
Yeah, well, let's keep an eye on it because we know how challenging this is. And you can listen to the sound as well of the bouncing, hitting the water. But that's actually a good first sector. That's the fastest first sector of anybody.
He really maintained the drive there. The ride height looked really good. This is the tricky section, though, so it's going to be really critical that he gets the setting just right. But so far, so
Look
good.
at that.
The belly of the boat is just barely in the water to where he's still moving forward, but he's not falling off the foil really hard here. So this is looking pretty good for Micah.
That's impressive. I'm impressed the way he's dealt with it. I'm not sure the rolls have been quite as difficult as they were earlier, but I think he's dealing with it very, very well, Michael Wilkinson. And that second sector has also gone well. He will be challenging that 118.7 that's been set by Sam Coleman.
I think comparatively that the waves looked just as rough, but Micah was much lower on the foil, and I think in that particular section, slow is fast. If you're trying to push really hard through there on the settings and you get too high up, you're going to fall. And Micah was just barely kissing the top of the waves, and you can see that in his lap time right now. He's looking great.
Yes, he's gone faster, 117.7, a second faster than Sam Coleman. So as you say, that was really cleverly done. That was impressive the way he dealt with that extremely well. And Drogba, fastest of the top four so far. Now, we will get a second run from all of them. But there's a smile on his face as he chats to the team to know that he is fastest.
It's definitely a testament to Micah's driving. You know, like I said earlier, he's always very aggressive, and we just saw him kind of slow down a little bit on that really rough section, and I think that it paid off. So he kind of reeled in his settings just a little bit, brought the boat down just enough so that it wasn't just bashing off the foils and slowing him down compared to like what we saw from Rusty Wyatt, who was really pushing it.
Really not cutting.
And we're enjoying seeing the Westbrook team there as well, and we will be seeing them out in the next group because they were in the top four. We're in the bottom four at this stage, but remember, ultimately this Q2 standings will put them all together, and it's the slowest two that will not then make it through to Q3. Right, second lap now for Team Brady as Sam Coleman, who was fastest until a moment ago when Michael Wilkinson set the pace even faster. Let's see whether he can now go and find a bit more pace himself.
This approach already looks better than earlier. He's been on the boost quite a bit longer than he was earlier, but you can still see the racebird kind of hunting through the waves. And when I say hunting, I mean that it's kind of tottering back and forth across the wings, and a lot of that comes from these very big rollers that are coming into the right side of the boat. So he did make his way through that start much better than he did earlier, and now he's got to navigate this tricky part coming out of this final corner right here.
Absolutely. So this is important. I think he's pretty safe in terms of the pace he's done, but this is all rather unpredictable, as we said earlier.
You can see his ride height is a lot lower than it was earlier, and he's already much more stable than he was. So I do think that because of these conditions, we're going to see these pilots kind of back off on the aggressive settings that they probably prefer to be running because that feels faster. But when you deal with conditions like this, sometimes, you know, slower can be faster.
Well, compared in Sector 2, he's just missing out a little bit, but let's see how this comes together. He had done a 118 earlier. The pace at the moment is a 117.7, and all about just not being in the bottom two places overall when all 8 have put out their times. If you're in the top 2 in the in this stage, you're definitely going to be safe. So a 121.2, that's definitely slower. Definitely slower than earlier on, so that didn't quite come together, but that earlier one that he did, I think, will still keep him safe.
He did have a really good run to the finish line, though, compared to some of the other teams. The racebird was quite high on the foil, looked very stable, so I think the speed is there. It's just a matter of, you know, getting lucky with a good lap. It's just so rough out there right now that, you know, there's not a ton those pilots can do to prevent that, and it's just how they can adapt.
Bit of a sigh from him, as you could see there. Bit of a deep breath. I can imagine breathing when you're bouncing like that. I mean, you're a racer, you know what it's like in these things. When you're bouncing like that, actually, it's quite nice when you slow down, you can take a proper breath.
I can say, to be completely honest, I'm not jealous of the pilots here today. The water conditions are very rough, and, you know, although you're seated in kind of a comfortable cockpit, every time the racebird falls off the foil, all of that inertia transfers into the body immediately, and it's like slamming on the brakes in a car, and it's not super comfortable. So I can imagine the pilots are really taking a beating today. So I understand Sam's frustration. You know, there's not much you can do other than to just hang on when you're dealing with conditions like this. So, you know, I get it.
This is an important one for Rusty Wyatt, because Alula down in 4th place at the moment, and you don't want to be in the bottom place of your group, clearly. So this is actually an important advantage to try and take now.
This already looks a lot better for Rusty. You know, earlier we saw him just have a whole section that was just a complete rodeo, and now he looks a lot smoother. He's definitely a lot lower on his foils here, so I'm sure that was a settings choice. You know, he looks a lot slower than he did earlier, but he wasn't really going anywhere earlier because he was spending so much time in the air. So hopefully this is a cleaner lap for them.
Yeah, so that is a personal better in the 2nd sector. It's not the ultimate that we've seen from others, but you're right. I think this is definitely a second, a much better run. What was that?
I think he was under the boost when he came into that corner there, because he kind of overshot it a little bit and carried a lot of speed. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it definitely helped him get through that corner a lot faster, and now he's looking to slingshot it right here.
Yeah, head over to the right a little bit more. 120.73. Now that's put him 3rd, which is a slightly safer place, but it's definitely not safe overall. So we shall see. We'll also see how Sierra get on with this too. But that is important that Rusty Wyatt had done a slightly better lap. It's just so tricky out there at the moment. We've still got Sierra and Drogba to put in their 2nd laps, and he is having a chat with the team.
He doesn't look too upset, but I can imagine that he's probably trying to relay some. He's kind of covering his mouth a little bit. I don't know if that's because he's sweaty or trying to be sneaky, but I can imagine the teams are a little frustrated right now with the conditions, because like I said, you know, they can take all the settings in the world, but then when they go out, if the conditions change slightly, then those settings are kind of mute. So we'll see what Katie. Oh, it looks like Katie got the wing stuck there. That's not great for her approach.
That did look like a bit of a... Yeah.
It looked like she said there was a massive wave, so I think she just got caught up in a roller there, and it grabbed hold of her wing and slowed her down. But the good news is that was before the start-finish line, so she has time to recover, but you can see she just keeps stuffing it in the wave there. She really needs to kind of move in between those rollers and kind of stay in the ruts that are there, rather than kind of leaning into the backside of them, and that's where she was getting stuck.
Yeah, I mean, it did actually look as though she went over that start line a bit slower than normal because of that, as you said. So it is then difficult to get your speed back. Let's watch her through this very difficult section.
It looks like she's just maybe got the settings a little bit off. Looks better there,
yeah.
But just some big rollers there that can be hard to navigate.
Maybe we're still in, maybe not, but everybody's going to be out there at the same time tomorrow, so.
I definitely think the approach that she had on the front, or on the start straight, slowed her down quite a bit. You know, when the wing gets wet in a straight line, it can be very difficult because it'll keep dragging the boat down, and a lot of times it's hard to drive out of it without stopping. So like you were saying, it looked like she stopped on the starting line, and that was probably to try and release the wing to right the boat again. And like I said, there's not much you can do other than slow down, and that really kills your momentum.
Let's just see as she comes in. She's not far off actually coming across the line this time. 20.5. And that actually has put her back into 3rd place, and that has put Rusty Wyatt, Alula, back down into 4th position. So actually that was a clever last part of the lap, effectively, that she did there.
She definitely had a good final corner there. She was very smooth, kept the speed up, and then had a slingshot at the end to really keep her speed up. So despite the fact that she really struggled in that first section, she made it work. So we'll have to see later, you know, if they're able to pull together a really clean lap if they don't have that kind of drag at the beginning.
Rusty did a very good final section, but it was the middle sector that really cost him. Right, Drogba. Let's see how Michael Wilkinson does with this now, having set a very good pace earlier on. Safe, really, so it doesn't need to worry too much because there's no danger of not getting through to the next stage of qualifying. But right now, it's just about seeing what you can get out of it, and he will be handing it over to Tara Pacheco for the next part of qualifying after this.
Definitely looking very smooth. Like I was saying earlier, he's opting to try and drive the boat kind of in between the waves where those nice little ruts are to kind of keep you from rolling into the waves. And you can tell it's helping him keep his momentum up. He's not really getting pulled one way or the other. He's not slamming off the foils too hard. So I think as far as settings go, Micah's really got a good grip on it. So we'll see how this lap looks, but comparatively, it looks like he's driving the boat close to the same. So I don't really think that they're experimenting too much.
So the New Zealander who began in kart racing but then got into yachts and excelled in sailing, so he's very used to the feel of water, and see how it makes it change. Oh, he's taking a bit of a dip there. What did you think there?
You know, he did kind of drop between the waves, but because he's staying so low on the foil, it's not a hard slam like hitting the brakes. So you kind of have to decide, do you want to risk falling off the foil by riding high enough to pass over the top of the waves, or do you want to risk drag and ride low enough that you're not going to fall so far? So I think Micah's really found a nice happy medium where he's keeping the momentum up. He's not so high that he's just slamming off the foils, and he's not so low that the boat's slowly getting dragged down into the water.
No, I think you're right, because I think this is still a decent lap. It may not be the fastest, but it's a reasonable lap. Let's just see. He's lost a little bit more actually coming out of that last section, so actually it is a little bit slow, 1:24.3. But the time he did earlier, absolutely fine, of course, so totally safe, and he will have been experimenting.
You can see poor Micah is just sweating in the cockpit. It is so hot out there. These pilots have been in the boats for a minute now, and they really have to push through that and focus. I remember racing in Monaco. I felt like I was crying. I was sweating so much it made it hard to see. So you have to give these guys some credit for toughing it out. You know, you're in the water, but you're not keeping cool, and that can really suck on race day.
And Tara Pacheco keeping a very close eye on that, because she will be in that boat for the next part of qualifying, because they are definitely going to be able to go through to the next stage of qualifying, and that's what she will be doing.
Hey Micah, Jet Girl here with TV. Your first lap was flying and your second lap was a little bit slower. Was it the conditions, or were you having a hard time?
Hey there, yeah, second lap, just caught some waves out on that kind of front straight around the far side, and actually put the nose up.
The nose up there. It's fine. It's got a full, beautiful green windshield, so actually, well, I wasn't that backed off, but I definitely didn't cloud the bow and do any more after that. So, no, really happy. It was a good lap. So, yeah, cheers.
Thanks, Micah. Looking good and hoping you get a little bit of flatter water later.
Yeah, we hope so too. It's good, it's challenging out there, but safely through to Q3, into that next stage, as I say, and we will see how Tara Pacheco gets on with it for Team Drogba. Right, we will be getting ready now for the next group in a few minutes' time. They will be coming out, so Aoki, Westbrook, Monaco, and Team Blue Rising, they will all be coming out, and they had some impressive performances, particularly Aoki earlier on in qualifying. Westbrook was second fastest, Monaco third, and Blue Rising fourth, but it could be a very different story.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think we need to keep our eyes on Aoki as we come into what appears to be much rougher conditions. I think that Aoki and, both pilots on Team Aoki may have gotten some smoother conditions earlier. Not to say that it was flat, because it was definitely not flat, but as the day progressed, we saw a lot rougher conditions. So I'm curious to see if they're able to still maintain that faster pace, or if they're going to struggle to adapt, because clearly it's very rough out there and pilots are struggling.
Absolutely, and because we've got 4 more boats to go in this part of Q2, and it's only after those 4 have done their 2 runs, so remember it's not just 1 run, they get a chance to do 2 runs, it's only after that that we then see who are the slowest 2 of the 8, and then those 2 will be dropped out, and then we'll be into Q3 with those that have made it with their other pilots, swapping over pilots between sessions in this part that we are now in. And so there's no doubt that for Alula, which was the slowest team in that last session that we've just had, they will be watching very closely, of course, and a bit worried about, are they going to be beaten? But we will have to just wait and see how that all goes.
I'm sure Micah's probably headed straight to an ice bath right now after that extended session with the red flag. These guys are definitely sweating, but good on them for hanging tough and making it still happen. It's very easy to get a little bit rattled when you're feeling uncomfortable, and Micah kept a cool head.
Yeah, it's a good time to see how Drogba, because they've had a tough time this year all the time. But for now, let's go down and join Taylor Snyder.
Well, Rusty, you've just come off Q2, finishing last in your group. That's not the way you wanted to start, but tell me about the water out there.
Yeah, it was so rough. The first lap that we got was like pretty much a blowout. We had some big cruiser wake coming in, or yacht wake, shall I say, here in Monaco, and kind of blew it, but put it together a decent lap on the second one. I will say I was pretty happy with what I did on the conditions that we were given. And you know what? There's 4 more boats to go out. We're in 4th place right now, but we'll see where we end up. We got a big day tomorrow. Either way, we're really fired up. So we'll see where we end up today.
What I do notice from Alula always is consistency. You guys seem to go out there and find that consistent run. What does the team discussions look like to find that?
Yeah, exactly that. You know, that's been our whole motto this year is just kind of be consistent. You know, don't necessarily need to win, but we always seem to be there in the end. We've gotten a couple pulls this year, which has been great, but we've also done not so good in qualifying, but made our way throughout the race day. So, like I said, we're going to hope for the best today, but if not, we got a big day tomorrow.
Thanks, Rusty.
Well, let's see how this all goes. And very clear from him, he knows the game, that sometimes you just have to learn what's going on. So we are looking at that first batch of 4 in Q2. So Drogba set the pace, 117.7. Team Brady in 2nd place, and they are pretty safe. Sierra in 3rd, but Alula could be at risk on a 120.73, because remember, it will be the 2 slowest, but it very much depends on how the next lot get on in Q2 here, as we look back at some of the highlights. Monaco hosting the 4th round of the UIM E1 World Championship presented by PIF in 2026. The world's first all-electric raceboat series travelling the globe, and we have got a great opportunity now to see some more of the battles in qualifying, as it is proving to be a challenging surface right now with a lot of bumping around. But we shall see. The teams are responding. The pilots combined, we have 20 pilots in the 10 teams, and they will be swapping over as we go through these next few stages of qualifying. And there is Westbrook, the team Westbrook, and it is Lucas Ordóñez who will be competing in this one this time, and they are incredibly successful this year. Really impressive what they've done. In Dubrovnik, Westbrook became only the second ever team to top qualifying and then win the event, and they took victory in Lake Como as well, so the second team to take back-to-back E1 wins. That's so impressive with what they have achieved, and the question is, can they make it 3 in a row? Can they do the hat trick this weekend at Monaco?
It's quite a bit of pressure to keep that momentum going, but I think that they have the right headspace and mentality to keep it rolling.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Let's see how we get on with this. This is the lineup then. We have 4 Westbrook, Lucas Ordóñez, as I mentioned. Oban Duncan, she's been very rapid, and it's Team Monaco having their first ever opportunity to compete here at Monaco. It's the first year that we've had the entry of Team Monaco. Team Aoki, Danny Kloss, they've had some ups and downs, very much so. And Blue Rising, John Peters too, he can be very rapid. The Team Blue Rising have definitely had some good times and bad times. They were second overall at Lake Como, but only 7th and 8th in the other 2 events that we've had so far this year. But Blue Rising have done well at Monaco, having won here last year.
Looking at the particular lineup that we have for this session, I think my eyes are going to be on 1, Danny Close, to see if they can keep the speed up as the conditions have gotten worse. 2, at Lucas Ordóñez, who is at the top of the leader standings right now with Team Westbrook. We want to see that momentum keep going if they want to keep winning. And then also Oban. To see Monaco doing this well in qualifying coming into their first home race is looking good for that team, but you can't count out John Peters. We've seen all season long that they've kind of struggled at the beginning, and then John Peters lands himself in the final and drives his way to the front. So, you know, I think anything could really happen, but that's what I'm looking for in this session.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting session. We shall find out very soon. Now the session is underway, and it is going to be Blue Rising that will go first, so it will be John Peters. As you can see, he's just heading off towards the starting area now, and this team, the only win they've ever had in E1 was at Monaco last year. Let's see whether they can try and match that again this weekend.
John's extensive powerboat racing background is hopefully going to lend well for the water conditions that we're dealing with this weekend. He spent a ton of his lifetime on the water, and hopefully that helps him out here today. It certainly helped him out last year, so we'll see what they can come up with. He's on and off the boost quite a bit on the start straight here, but for the most part, the run's looking pretty good.
It is looking impressive so far, but obviously you've got to think about that battle not to be in the bottom 2. It's more a question of just putting it together smoothly into the turn section on riding on board. How's this looking?
Unlike some of the other pilots, he's definitely keeping the race bird a lot tighter on those other smart marks, but here he's kind of hooking around the backside, so much tighter. Interesting selection. Typically when you see the water get a lot rougher, you want to kind of stay off the smart mark to keep your momentum up and also keep from letting the waves push you into those smart marks, but he's still looking pretty good, and we'll see how he does in this really rough section here. So far so good, Ben.
Yeah, so good at this stage. That first sector, 25.1 seconds, is quite reasonable. 26.9. So the pictures that are coming up at the moment showing he is fastest in this particular session, because each session is slightly different, so you can only go with the first one initially. We were seeing times quite often into the 120s, but we did get into the 117s in that last run. So let's just see how competitive it is looking for John Peters now as he comes up to complete the lap there, and it's a 119.90. That looks quite reasonable, doesn't it?
I think so. Compared to the previous session, he was definitely able to keep the race bird a lot higher on the foils. You know, when we were looking at Micah's fastest lap, he was very low. The belly of the race bird was kind of kissing the tops of the waves, and here we have John Peters, who was a lot higher up on the foil. So we'll see on his second lap if he can make things go a little bit quicker now that he's got grips with the conditions, but not a bad lap for John Peters.
Not bad at all, no. So that was a good first one. He will get a second lap in a little while. We get all 4 of these boats to get a single lap in first, and then they all get a chance to do another one again. Now, it is Team Monaco that will be going next, and this is going to be fascinating to see how Oban Duncan goes, because she set a very good pace earlier on today, didn't she?
She definitely did. She's definitely one of the fastest qualifiers today. She looked very good. Her ride height looked really smooth. But I'm curious to see, you know, the conditions rougher now than they were earlier, and is that going to impact her now? It looks like overall lap times are getting longer and longer as the day progresses. So I'm curious to see how Oban's going to do.
Absolutely. So this is the first season for Team Monaco, but she's an experienced competitor, 14 entries in E1 over the years, and so this will be her 15th as she now comes up over the line, keeping the boost going here as she goes across the line just to increase, and that's balancing well at this stage.
She was driving very good across the line. When the boat came off the boost, it looks like the nose dropped down a little bit and she got a little bit unstable, but she was definitely on the boost a lot longer than everybody else has been on the start straight, so we'll see how that pays off for her. And she's looking very level as she's coming around this corner here, so if she can keep the wing dry, a little wet there, but she cornered pretty good, so we'll see. So far, it's looking pretty good.
That was a good first sector, 23.2 seconds. This is definitely on target to be slightly quicker, I think, in this one. This is the incredibly demanding sector, but she's coping with that pretty well, I think.
Yeah, more or less looked pretty smooth. She definitely kind of fell off the foil a couple times, but not slamming as hard as what we saw in some of the earlier sessions today. So drive looks really good. She's definitely got the delicate balance mostly figured out.
And she is still up on the time that has been set so far by John Peters. Remember, it's not necessarily being fastest in this session that matters, it's not being the slowest. Until we get the other two coming out, that will give us a bit more of an indication of who's where. And we've got Team Westbrook coming up next, and of course they can be very competitive. But let's just see now as Oban Duncan comes up towards the line, and it's a good lap. Look at that, 1:16.8. My goodness, we haven't seen a 1:16 for quite a while.
Yeah, that looked really good. One of the biggest things I noticed as she was approaching the finish line, she didn't go wide to try and get the slingshot like some of the other teams have. So maybe that helped clean it up at the end. But either way, very good lap for Oban. You know,
yeah.
she kept the boat very level, which is critical, and I think that helped her navigate those rough conditions. So Team Monaco looking very good here today.
I think, yeah, she deserves that, because that was impressive. We did see earlier in qualifying this morning when we started a lot earlier than this when they were first out. They were putting laps in around the 1:16s, even quicker than that sometimes, but we haven't seen it for a while. Everybody's been struggling to get just below 1:20.
It's hard to say from the commentator booth if it was luck and the water was a little bit flatter, or if Oban was really just navigating it that well. It's hard to tell unless you're in the driver's seat, but from where we're sitting, it looked like a really clean lap for Oban, and hopefully she can go even faster on her second try.
So Team Westbrook now, the series leaders at this stage, and it is Lucas Ordóñez who is heading out for Team Westbrook, having taken those 2 wins in the last 2 big events at Lake Como and Dubrovnik, and leading in the championship on 101 points with a 12-point advantage. But this is qualifying, and this is about just getting through to the next stage, and you get some views of some of what the technical side for the pilots are now.
So far, his drive on the start-finish line here is looking pretty good. It does look like the waves have slightly shifted directions. Earlier today, it looked like they were running pretty parallel with the straightaway, and now it looks like they've shifted slightly, so the boats are kind of headed diagonally into the face of those waves, which can upset the boat quite a bit more. But so far, looking very good. He stayed on the boost pretty long there, and he managed to deal with that corner. We've seen a lot of boats wheelie out of that corner, but now it looks like he saved the wheelie for a little bit later. Definitely up, off, and on the foil here. He might be riding a little bit too high for these conditions.
Yeah, it does look like he's bouncing a little too much compared to some of the others at that point, but he did a good first sector, so I think he's still going to be in the mix. Yes, he has lost a bit in this second sector. That wasn't quite so rapid. He's lost about a second or so to what some of the others have done, but maybe in the final sector it can make it come together again.
It's still possible if he runs a really clean line around this last corner here, but just coming out of the water like that, you're not moving forward when the propeller's not in the water, so that'll definitely slow him down. And like I said, he's running a lot wider. You can see he kind of drifts away from the last smart mark, unlike Oben, who really made a straight shot out of it.
Well, this is a 119.7. He goes a fraction faster than John Peters. Just a fraction, but it's quite a long way off what Oben Duncan had done. So it's still not ideal by any means, but then comparing to the times in the first group, he's still in a relatively safe place. And if you look at the Q2 standings that we've got up on screen, it has put him into 4th place overall at this stage. And of course, it's Team Aoki that have not set a time as yet. And it does look as though Alula are the ones who've already set a time in the previous run. They look as though they're going to be at risk.
I'm curious to see, you know, Lucas may not have had the best run there, but he spent a lot of that lap in the air. So if he has a second run later on here and does well, we may see him clean that up quite a bit, because it's still not a terrible time considering he spent a lot of time bouncing around in that race bird. But looking now at Danny, want to see if the race conditions are something he's able to adapt to, because they looked really good earlier, but I don't think the conditions earlier were as rough as they are now.
No, that's very true. So let's see how it looks on board with Danny Kloss, with Team Aoki that have had some big ups, but also a few not so good ones. They were only 10th in Dubrovnik last time out, having taken a victory at the beginning of the year. So they just want to try and get it all back together as they have had it before. And that's a decent first sector, actually. So this is looking good so far. It's into the second sector where we really watch it.
This is right where things get really rough. So far, he's staying pretty flat, but we're coming into the backside of the waves here, which honestly act like a ramp for this race bird to get up into the air. But he's keeping his race bird pretty low on the settings, and you can see that it's not slamming down off the foils quite as hard as like we saw Lucas earlier. So looking pretty good for Danny Kloss in terms of momentum.
Yeah, that looks like a nice balance. He's not quite as quick as Open Duncan was through that section, but nonetheless, decent performance and every chance of getting out of 7th and 8th places at the moment. Of course, hasn't done a time yet, and they will get a second run as well, but this could bring Aoki back up into the top 8 and continue in the qualifying battle that will go through the next couple of stages. Let's have a look as he comes across the line. Yeah, 118.3 puts him up into 3rd overall, and that puts Sierra and Alula down into the bottom zone.
Definitely pretty rough lap there for Danny. He navigated it pretty well, so I definitely think that the team has their act together. You know, looking at how they were looking in practice yesterday, they were at the bottom of the bracket. Very slow, very frustrated. They went back to the drawing board, looked at some things that they were suspicious of technically with the boat, and now it looks like things are on the up for them, which is good news because it's very difficult to start off the season with a win and then kind of go downhill from there. So hopefully things are looking up for Team Aoki.
Absolutely, and unless there is a ban of some sort or a risk, and which can happen, of course, at the moment, until we get to the end of this, it is looking like 2 of the teams that ran in the first part of Q2 will be knocked out, not getting into Q3. It looks like it's going to be Sierra and Alula. I do wonder, the nature of the water is changing all the time. It's still pretty rough, but whether it's slightly better or it's just these teams are kind of getting their heads around it more, I'm not sure.
I do think there's been a slight shift in the direction of the waves that may be making a bigger difference. You know, we saw some of the pilots earlier on kind of able to track between the waves, and I think now the waves have kind of shifted diagonally, so you no longer have an opportunity to try and sneak between these waves. You kind of just have to drive through them, and when that happens, you really have to be on the settings and ready to adapt, otherwise you're going to end up in the air a bunch. So, you know, like you said just a moment ago, there's still opportunities for crazy things to happen. You know, disqualifications, laps being deleted, anything could happen. So hoping that doesn't happen here today, but it's not over until we finish the session.
Okay, so let's see how it goes for Team Monaco now, going out for their second run. And Team Monaco have already set the pace with that fantastic lap that Open Duncan did earlier. So this is just experience. They're already very safe going through.
At this point, the team kind of has two options. They can run exactly what they just did and try and do a little bit better, or they could push those settings and try and find some extra speed. You know, all that testing is going to pay off when they go to race tomorrow. So, you know, they're looking very good. They look very stable. It looks like they have the balance really figured out in the boat. The ride height looks very good. So I think they're looking pretty good right now, and I'm hoping that they have a good showing tomorrow.
Well, it's exciting that Team Monaco are doing such a great job at Monaco at the moment. I mean, we can't predict, of course, for tomorrow because everything can change, the conditions can change, everything can shift, but they are doing really well. And Open Duncan, with her experience in E1 racing, has been very impressive. And again, look at that, how smooth that's running at the moment. That does look pretty as you wanted, isn't it?
She's pretty high on the foil, but even as she crosses through the backside of those rollers, she stays very smooth. So maybe those rollers are a little bit shorter on this lap, but either way, she's adapted really quickly to be running settings to keep that boat looking very smooth. Balance is key here. It's literally like driving a teeter-totter, and right now, Open Duncan has it just right.
Yeah, it's a good lap. Again, it's not quite as quick as she did earlier, but it's a 1:17.9, which is still quicker than everybody else from the rest of this session so far. But it was that 1:16.8 that she did a little bit earlier that was even more impressive. But to do two good laps, and to learn from it as well. Team Monaco, well done to Team Monaco. They're doing a superb job here so far. They're going into Q3, and then if they make it into Q4, which is looking very likely, there's a chance of scoring some useful points.
This is good for them as well, because I believe in Dubrovnik they had a DNF where they had some issues. So for them to come back here and be doing quite a lot better, I think that's good. Actually, I don't think they had a DNF, but I do think they had some trouble. So getting a clean run here definitely is going to build on their momentum and kind of help lift their spirits.
It will be Max Noscher who will do the next stage, Q3, but if he then gets through it will be Open Duncan who'll be going for those points for the fastest pace. Right, let's go back with Westbrook, the series leaders at this stage right now, and Lucas Ordóñez, who is currently third in this particular group, fifth overall. Looks safe, but I think he will definitely be wanting to find a bit more pace here.
Absolutely. If they can't find pace here, they're not going to have it on race day. So they're definitely searching for that. I think if Lucas can fix his approach on the opposite side of the track, he's going to clean up his lap time quite a bit. He definitely has Sector 1 figured out pretty well. So he just needs to keep the boat in the water on the far side of the track, and I think we're going to see that lap time go down, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, that's looking reasonable in that first sector so far for Lucas Ordóñez. And now this is where we want to watch the balance, watch the dip, and not let him get too much drag.
It's looking a lot better for him this time around. The prop's staying in the water, which is going to push him forward. He's definitely still coming off the foil, but not nearly as bad as he was earlier. So hopefully this helps shave some time off his lap.
A man who has won at Lake Como both in 2024 and in 2026. He's had 3 wins in his career. It's impressive what they can do, and with them leading the championship at this stage, they just want to keep it up there, and I am impressed with what they're doing so far. So out through into the final part of the sector and to cross the line. This does look as though it's going to be another decent lap, not the fastest, but it's a 1:18.4.
Yeah, he looked a lot better that time around, but just didn't have the speed there. I think that kind of, again, opting to slingshot at the end. I think Open Duncan has been the only pilot today that's really driven straight coming out of that final corner, and that may be part of what's lending to their faster lap time. A lot of the other teams are choosing to swing wide around that last corner and try and keep their speed up, and Team Monaco just has the boat balanced really well, so they're able to still keep that corner very tight without having to swing wide. So that might just be in the boat setup, or that may just be some magic behind the wheel, but I haven't seen any other teams doing that today.
It's interesting, yeah. He's only a 10th away from what Aoki had done earlier. We're now seeing Aoki back out with Danny Kloss, because Danny had done a 1:18.3, and Lucas has just done a 1:18.4. Let's see if Danny Kloss can go that little quicker. I think they're both safe. They will be handing over to the other pilots to do the next stage of qualifying, but let's just see if he goes quicker here.
Danny's just porpoising so bad on that start. He really lost the drive that he needed to get some speed going there, so hopefully he can make it up in the second half of the track here, but that start was probably not what he wanted. The nose of the Racebird was really plowing through the waves, so hopefully he can clean it up, but that's not a good start for Danny Kloss.
The slapping noise as well when we're riding on board sometimes does vary, I find, between different boats, and this one is slapping pretty hard.
You don't necessarily have as much engine noise with these electric watercraft, but there is plenty of water noise, let me tell you. It's definitely very loud in the cockpit there today. Anytime there's water touching the hull, the pilot can fully hear that without the engine noise kind of interfering. So it's definitely very loud in there, and it's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. It's not going to be the fastest lap, this one. It's looking at the sector times. It's going to be in the mix, but I don't think it's going to challenge the sort of times that we've seen from Monaco in particular. That's just coming into this last sector now, and as he comes up towards the line, looks like it's going to be more back into the 120s. Yeah, actually it's well over 120s, isn't it? Across the line, 123.1.
Like I said earlier, looking at Team Aoki, they looked very fast, and then the conditions got a lot rougher. So I was curious to see, could they adapt on the fly as the conditions got worse? And it looks like they were definitely struggling. When the waves get very rough, you can't run the same settings that you did earlier, and there's no time in between to test that. So while they may have gone out with a great plan earlier today, it doesn't look like that worked as well the second time, and that may be what we just witnessed here. But they're still in a good position overall. You can tell Danny, he's moving his arms around. He's not happy with the wave conditions right now, and that could be very difficult. And again, when you're dealing with a pilot that doesn't have as much watercraft background and you have to kind of adjust on the fly, it can be hard. But like I mentioned, they have a great team of watercraft racers behind them, and they're still up near the top.
Yep. Well, he will be handing over to Sada Miziervaz for the next part of qualifying in just a little while, but Team Monaco have done a superb job. Very, very impressive indeed, and we've got plenty more to look forward to after the action today.
Hola, Danny. It's Anna in TV. It looks very rough out there. Can you give us some feedback? You were fast earlier. Is it the conditions, or are you having trouble?
Hi Anna, how are you? Nice to talk to you. Hi everyone. Yeah, it was tricky. It was tricky. The waves now just got a little bit tougher. I wanted to try something different to see if we could get a better result, more stability on the boat. And it did. So let's see. Let's hope for the best. Now it's Sarah's time, so let's go for it.
It's nice to see your guys' luck looking up here. Good luck later today. Hopefully you guys get some smoother water.
Well, great to see. How difficult is as a pilot? Is it, with all this up and down and rolling, do you almost feel seasick when you're a pilot in one of these?
It's ironic. I believe when the series first started, Emma Kimiläinen mentioned that she typically got seasick, and she didn't really seem to have a problem in the race bird. But I think a lot of times when you're driving these watercraft that you're so focused on what's going on that you don't really have time to feel seasick. So far I don't think anybody's gotten seasick. I hope not, but it's not typical seasickness because you're just getting rocked in all different directions.
Well, looking at some of these images of how you have to deal with all the challenges of the water here is fantastic to see. Let's take a little look then at what has given us the results of Q2 going into Q3. Monaco setting the pace impressively, 1:16.8 ahead of Droppa. Aoki with their first lap, that was good to go third ahead of Westbrook, Brady and Team Blue Rising. Sadly, the two teams that are not going to the next stage of qualifying are Sierra and Alula, but they will be working hard on the racing tomorrow, and you never know, they could indeed be factors when it comes to the racing, even if qualifying does not quite work out. Let's take a look back at some of those highlights from qualifying. Hello and welcome to the 2026 UIM E1 World Championship presented by PIF, taking place in Monaco, and we are preparing now for Q3, where we've got the fastest 6 so far that will be contesting to try and get into the final part of qualifying and then score points for the fastest times that have been set. I'm Ben Edwards, and with me is former E1 pilot and race winner Jet Girl Anna Glennon. And Anna, we are seeing some ups and downs for all sorts of teams so far. Hard to predict who's actually going to end up fastest when we get through to the final stage, but we're still going to lose 2 more in this next stage.
Ups and downs is probably the best way to describe it, Ben. The conditions out there today have been, for lack of a better word, gnarly. We're dealing with a lot of leisure boat traffic. We're dealing with waves shifting because of the shoreline and the breakwater, and it's really causing a lot of problems for our pilots. They're having to adapt a lot on the fly, and as we've seen as the day goes on, the conditions are getting quite a bit worse. So we've seen the lap times kind of fall off, and it's making things very difficult for the pilots.
So let's take a look at the lineup coming up here. We've got Blue Rising, Drogba, Team Brady, Aoki, Westbrook and Monaco will be competing in this. Monaco have set the pace with Owen Duncan. It's going to be Max Noche this time. For Westbrook, it'll be Sarah Price. For Aoki, Sara Mizia-Vaz. For Brady, Emma Kimalainen, who's always very rapid. Tara Pacheco for Drogba. And Michelle Alabidan will be competing, having taken over from John Peters for Team Blue Rising. So they will again get 2 runs around the lap. They have to do 1 lap at a time, and it's just about trying to get the establishment of getting the pace right and dealing with it. Drogba and Westbrook are the only teams to advance to Q3 in every event this season so far, so that's good news to Drogba and Westbrook, but scoring the points of course comes from Q4, when the fastest qualifier will score 3 points, but it's also about getting your starting positions for the races tomorrow, isn't it?
Qualifying is interesting because, as important as it feels on quali day, it really resets tomorrow when race day comes around. So quali point is very important, but it's more about testing, finding the right setup, finding the right settings, and hoping that translates to the big day tomorrow.
Absolutely right. So it is going to be Team Blue Rising that is going to go first in this, and it'll be Michelle Alabidan who will go for it, having seen John Peters do a good job with the boat and managing to get through to this stage. So Michelle, the first Saudi woman to gain a rally license in her career, but in a very different world. She's competed in Dakar, but this is a very different world, competing at Dakar in E1 powerboats, of course, and we shall see how she manages to get on with this. And sometimes being the first one to go out can be an advantage, sometimes it can be a disadvantage.
She's sitting in a good position right now because as the first pilot to take to the track, she should theoretically get the cleanest water. So there's no other pilots that have been on the track to kind of stir things up. She's the first one to go. So typically we see the fastest lap of the session on the very first lap. So we'll see if she does that here today or if she struggles in the conditions.
Okay, well, let's watch the balance of the boat as Michelle Alabidan takes it off. Their best result this year has been that 2nd place overall at Lake Como. And they didn't qualify well there. They got a good result, but can they qualify well here? That's what we're watching for.
So far, she's had a pretty good charge off of the line. She's getting into a little bit of rollers here. You can see that they've shifted again. You know, we started with parallel rollers, then we had diagonal, and now they're kind of headed straight into them. So I'm not sure if that's a wind situation or if that's a traffic situation, but so far she's looking a lot better than she did earlier in the day, so maybe they've got a fighting chance.
It's fascinating, I find, how this surface changes at different times. We've got a bit of rocking here, that's what we've seen quite a lot in this section, isn't it?
This particular section has been very challenging because of the shift of those waves. She managed that pretty well, even though she kind of came up in the air a little bit. She didn't completely fall down off the foil, so she's looking pretty good.
Using the boost just in bits and pieces down this long straight line section. 24.4 into the first sector, 27.1 the second. Okay, it's not the fastest we've seen so far, but we're always finding it unpredictable. There's a lovely view from on board.
Based on this lap, I think the conditions have smoothed out a little bit, at least for Michelle's run here. It didn't look as violent as earlier, and the lap time really reflects that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's looking a little smoother out there. Yes, and it's a 1:18.7. That's more like the sort of times we were seeing earlier today when it was a bit smoother. I'm surprised at how this water changes. Virtually every session we go into, we're getting changes in how it is to react to it.
I just know some of the pilots and teams that were kicked earlier on are probably kicking themselves right now, because it seems like the conditions have cleaned up, at least for the moment, and it's very critical to just get a good run. And like we said, it looks like the first lap is usually the fastest. Right now, it appears that way. We'll see if that changes as more boats hit the track.
And as you said to me, sometimes it's an advantage to be the first one out in a situation like this, because then the one that follows has to deal with what's been left by the previous boat.
So in this particular session, we have more boats that we've had earlier, so at least on the track at the same time, so there's less space to let the water kind of calm down in between laps. So that does make things more difficult, but typically there's not two boats on the track at the same time, but it's just rough out there. Any little bit of smooth water you can get is going to make a huge difference.
She's using a lot of boost initially here, Emma Kymäläinen. Now backs off a little bit, but that was just to get her really going well down this straight.
Today we've seen a lot of the pilots getting onto the boost as they cross the starting line to kind of get their momentum going, pull the boat up out of the water and eliminate the drag. And then they back off of it as they start to get into the rollers, because if the boat is surging forward while they're hitting those rollers, it's more likely that it's going to fall off the foils.
Absolutely. So let's see, this is a good first sector for her, 24.0 in that first sector. So that's slightly quicker than we saw earlier.
This is the section that Team Brady has been struggling with all day long. They've had a really hard time keeping the boat in the water. They're moving around a little bit right now, a little unstable, but not as bad as it was earlier. So
Yeah.
Maybe Emma Kymäläinen can power through this.
I agree with that, yes. Initially she was really looking quite smooth there. That surprised me, because they were bouncing up and down a lot earlier. So they are getting it a little bit more balanced. How's the turn? That's quite tight, tucking in.
She definitely got the wing a little bit wet on that left side, but she pulled out of it pretty quickly because she was under the boost. So this is looking a lot better compared to her laps earlier today.
So 1:18.7 is the time to beat so far in this session. It's going to be quite similar. Let's have a look across the line, 1:18.2. So she does go faster.
Really unfortunate in that last 100 or so feet, she kind of fell off the foil, and that really slowed her down. She had a really good drive coming out of that corner and just lost it right at the end. That could have saved her a second. So she's looking good, and if she could do another lap like that in the next chance, I think she'll be looking pretty good.
Yeah, so we've got 25 minutes still left in this session. All of them have to do one lap initially, and then they all go back out for a second lap to see who's got the top 4 fastest times, because it is the top 4 fastest that will go through into Q4 when we get the points handed out. So you're now looking at Team Westbrook, the team that are leading the championship. It's Sarah Price who will be taking this one out this time. They have had such a good time winning Lake Como and winning Dubrovnik. They had the fastest qualifying there as well. Let's see if today is going to see another top qualifying performance. So they're out to beat a 1:18.2 set so far.
Just to kind of touch on this right here. Ooh, she got a little sideways there. The lap doesn't start until she crosses the checkered buoys right about there, but the lead up to that point is very important, because you want to be crossing the start finish line with a lot of momentum and be up on the foils. So you'll see a lot of these teams starting really far back before the lap actually starts. And so far the drive was okay, and then Sarah hit a couple rollers and you can see her slow way down. So she really needs to make it up. It's looking very rough out there, and the ride height's going to be critical to keep that boat in the water.
It is. She's in the balance with that first sector, not faster, but within a similar margin. Now, this is the area where we really do keep an eye on the boat, because the more you knock back down again, the more drag you get.
Big rollers right there. She got a little bit sideways. When the belly of the boat gets wet, you lose a lot of control over it, because sometimes the waves will just pull the boat whatever direction they feel like. So you could see there, Sarah was clearly not trying to go left and right at the same time, and she was going one direction, and then all of a sudden it hooked the opposite way, and that's because the boat was a little bit too wet and the water started pulling on it. So she did manage to make her way out of that, but I'm sure that slowed her down.
Yeah, a little bit. It's good through that last corner. That looked pretty neat, I have to say. Let's just see how she goes across the line. 1:18.2 is the fastest time. She's not going to be there, and this is going to be the slowest so far, actually. Oh, yeah, well off. She's 1:21.95. So we've got two up in the 1:18s, but she's ended up down in third at the moment, 1:21.9. And, of course, we've got three more teams still to put out a run.
A tough one for Sarah. I think that shoreline section is really messing with a lot of the pilots today. There's at least two different directions the waves are kind of moving on that side of the track, and if you just barely stick the nose in the wrong place, it can really interrupt your momentum, and that's what we're seeing today. Team Brady, Team Westbrook, they both struggled in similar sections. So I think that the pilots that are going to be fast are going to be the ones that anticipate that coming and adjust their settings accordingly.
So the next one who will be coming out for Team Aoki is Sarah Mizia Vaz, as she is now known after celebrating her marriage to Blaise Vaz at the end of May. And let's see how she gets going for Team Aoki.
We were talking about this earlier. Sarah was one of the fastest in the earlier sessions, but now the waves are a lot rougher. So we saw with Danny a little bit of a struggle. Are we also going to see that with Sarah, or have they cleaned it up?
Yeah, and we've seen ups and downs throughout the course of this year so far. They won that event at Jeddah and qualified very well there. 5th overall at Lake Como, but only 10th overall last time out in Dubrovnik.
Really interesting boost strategy. She's literally on and off the boost every few feet. So I'm curious if she's trying to power through the backside of the waves to keep the nose up, or if they're experiencing a boost problem there, or if our setting is just going bananas on our end. But she's on and off, on and off, on and off, and that may be trying to adjust the ride height of the boat without actually being on the settings. I know earlier this week when they were in practice, they had complained that they were having some trim issues. So it's possible that they're using the boost to kind of counter that if they didn't get it fixed.
She does know this Monaco circuit, and she's done very well here in the past. So let's just see how this comes together. That was a decent first stint, first part there that she's managed to do. So let's just see, is she going to be up there with the likes of Emma Kimilainen and Michelle Albedan, who are very close to one another at this stage?
She slowed down quite a bit coming out of that yellow marker. I think possibly because she was on the boost, she was kind of sticking the bow of the boat into the water, and it was really slowing her down. So she's lost a ton of momentum on this half of the track, and I think we're going to see that on the lap time, unfortunately.
You're absolutely right. The second sector, she has lost about 3-4 seconds, I think. So it depends really how she gets on in this final sector, but it's going to be, yeah, look, the time, gosh, this is going to be really slow one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is like what I was saying earlier. Adaptability is everything. When she was out there earlier, the water was quite a bit flatter, and here we see this problem here. I don't think it's a boat issue because Danny looked pretty consistent, so I think Sarah might just be dealing with the conditions.
Yeah, that was a bit of a blow, and I think for Team Aoki, who have been through these ups and downs, they're going through it today, from high pace earlier to absolutely nothing in that one. I mean, to do a 1:32.4, that is one of the slowest timed laps we have seen here today. Now we've got 2 more to go for their first runs. She will get another go, don't forget. So can she discuss with the team what they need to do, do you think?
Absolutely. There's always an opportunity to turn things around. Who knows? She could have a really flat track on the next lap. But I think what we're seeing here is just the conditions looked a little bit better, but I think they just weren't as good as they were for her earlier. That second half of the track that we've been talking about being really rough, we saw Lucas, we saw Emma, Sarah Price struggling with it, and then Sarah Vaz went out there and she also struggled with it. So I think it's just an adaptability issue at this point. Aoki looked good earlier in the day, and nothing changed. The only thing that changed was the condition. So I think that's probably what we're looking at.
Right, Tara Pacheco is now out for Drogba, and let's see whether they can now deliver again as they have done earlier on. She's taking over for this qualifying session, and she's a full-time Olympic sailor.
I know that we're looking at Drogba right now, but we have heard from the paddock that Sarah Price is reporting issues with her trim. It sounds like that it's moving too much and kind of anywhere it wants. So it sounds like she's struggling with the trim right now. Sometimes that can be a result of the water being rough and kind of yanking on the engine as it makes its way through the rough water. So hopefully Westbrook's able to work around that, but that may be why we're seeing Westbrook struggle a little bit. But back to Tara Pacheco, who's on the track right now. Sector 1 looking a little bit rough for her. Hopefully she can navigate her way through this tricky second section better than her competitors. She can easily make up a ton of time if she can navigate through this section.
Yeah, she's one of those who is still learning all about E1 because she's fairly early into it. And you can see the look on her face. She's not enjoying this bit. Oh, just about keeping it under control, but there's a lot of drag going on there.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know, you could see from the cockpit that she was really yanking on the steering wheel, and when you're dealing with the rough conditions, you want to try and avoid that because it's going to make your problem exponentially worse. You know, the Racebird really needs light corrections, and I think that's probably making her stability issue even worse as she's kind of gripping and yanking on the steering wheel, but she's not looking terrible. I do think this is a faster lap than she put down earlier, and she still has one more shot.
Well, I think this is going to be quite similar, actually, to Sarah Mzievaz, isn't it? Because, look, they're into the 130s. No, not quite. She's just a fraction faster, actually. 129.8 as opposed to Sarah Mzievaz, who did 132.4. But I'm really surprised that we're suddenly down to that level, particularly as we had Emma Kimilainen earlier do a 118.2 in this same session.
And this is what I was talking about earlier, where you can see the whole of the Racebird is getting really wet and the waves are just pulling it around. And then, unfortunately, Tara is kind of doubling down on that problem by yanking on the steering wheel. So she's kind of getting a little bit all over the place, and that can make it very hard to keep the Racebird moving forward fast. So, unfortunate lap for her. Thankfully, she kept the boat in one piece despite that rodeo, so she has another shot here later, but definitely a tough lap for Team Drogba considering how fast Micah was earlier in the day.
When you're, as you are an ex-pilot, when you're dealing with those angles going one side to the other, that must be a big challenge. Presumably you've got to try and dip it back down again to make sure you've got control.
Absolutely. I think I was one of the first pilots to flash the bottom of the boat to everybody. I had a big moment in Lake Como where, you know, the rodeos are sudden. This boat, you know, is typically very stable, but then if a wave catches it just right, when you have those waves underneath the water, it'll just take you for a ride, and there's not much you can do about it, and that's what we just saw from Tara. It's also really important that you try and stay in tune with it. If you try and force it to do something, it's not going to react well to that, and that's what we saw with Tara. I think, unfortunately, she kind of doubled down on the problem by trying to aggressively counter steer, and these boats just really don't tend well to that.
Well, let's see how Team Monaco get on. Max Nochet is now at the wheel for Team Monaco at its home event, effectively, but it's the first time that we've seen this because Team Monaco are new to the series in 2026. They've done some very, very impressive times throughout qualifying today so far, and they're going last because they were fastest earlier when Owen Duncan was in control. But it's now Max Nochet who wants to make sure they get into the final part, Q4, to score some points.
He was looking good coming around that last corner there. That's where we've seen a lot of these Racebirds kind of wheelie out of the corner because they're keeping the nose too low and then ramping off the back of the waves. But you could see he just stuck the wave.
Yeah.
He stuck the wing into the wave there, and it kind of pulled the boat around. So he's still got the momentum going, but definitely struggling through this section more than the other.
But this section is definitely in a more difficult state than it was earlier. I think he's dealing with it pretty well. He's actually done reasonable time through there. I'm not sure it's going to be up at the fastest, but I think he should be able to get into a safe place. Remember, the slowest two, and they will get a second run at it in a moment once he's done this, but it is the slower two that are in trouble.
Like Oben, he kept that final line around that last smart mark very tight, but he had a couple good wheelies there that really slowed him down.
And that has put him into fourth place. So in effect, that safety, even though it's, I think the more we've gone through this session, the harder it's got. But he's done a 124.1 as opposed to the 129.8 by Tyler Pacheco and the 132.4 by Sarah Mzievaz. So he is fourth, and the teams at risk at the moment, obviously, are Drogba and Aoki.
This is really unique to these conditions where you have a pilot like Sarah Mzievaz who was top of the timetable in her session earlier today, and now she has put down the slowest lap of the day, and a lot of that has to do simply with the conditions. So it's not necessarily that she's slow, she's just having a hard time adapting, and you know, they could have a technical issue, but looking at Danny Close and his performance, I think Sarah just needs to put together a clean lap through these conditions. So that can be very challenging as a pilot because you go from feeling like a rock star to wondering what you can do to fix this problem. So they were looking very good closer to the top of the table earlier, and now they're at risk for being knocked out.
Okay, so it is Michelle Alabadan who's going once again for Team Blue Rising. So they are currently second fastest. They're in a pretty safe place. But I'd be interested to see, can they kind of compete with the times they were doing at the beginning of the session? Will it be the same in this part?
I'm curious to see if we're going to see Michelle's lap time fall off now that she's not the first. She had that first pilot lap earlier and looked pretty good, but now we've had several boats go out. I'm curious to see if she maintains that pace, or are we going to see her lap time drop off here now that the session's progressed?
Yeah, this is going to be, and then it's into this section, isn't it, that's particularly demanding. It keeps changing. It's bizarre watching this as you see the roll and just watching them up and down. What do you think?
This is the section that's been tripping everyone up, and it's still kind of happening to Michelle here. This particular corner as well, when you go to correct that, it's easy to get the boat going a little too deep into that right-handed turn there, but she managed it pretty well. So this is looking pretty good for Michelle, considering the conditions are looking pretty bad.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a slower lap than she had done before because the conditions have changed. But I actually think she's dealing with this quite well at this stage. She's not up and down as much as many of the others.
I know at the previous races we've seen Michelle's qualifying times kind of all over the place, and today she's been pretty consistent despite the fact that the water's so rough, so this is looking good for Michelle.
Bit of a wide line there, but maybe that was on purpose, I'm not sure, just to try and keep off the bumpy bits. Let's see, it's not going to be as quick as she was earlier, but it is in the low 120s, so at this point is actually quite impressive. She's done a 118.7 earlier. That's a 121.3. They are safely through to the next stage, and John Peters will be very, very happy about that because he will have the chance to, in the next part, to try and score some points.
I think all eyes right now are going to be on Westbrook. If they really are having a technical issue with the trim, you know, that could really kill their next lap. Or let's see if they can adapt on the fly and make it work. My hunch is that these rough water conditions, when you have that big foil underneath the water, it's got a lot of leverage on the engine, and if it gets pulled around by the current or the conditions or the boat slamming and falling off the foil, it can adjust your settings for you when you don't want it to be. So my hunch is that's what Westbrook is dealing with right now, and hopefully they can get that sorted.
So here we have Team Brady, the double champions in E1 over the previous 2 years and still battling away in the title battle this year, just second place at the moment. Emma Kymäläinen has set the pace in her first run in this session. Can she maintain that sort of pace? I rather doubt it because it does seem to have got slower to me, but let's just keep an eye because she is very skilled.
It does seem like the water direction has shifted. She had a much better straightaway run there, and it looked like she was headed more into the face of waves instead of running diagonally across them. So hopefully that helps her with her overall pace here. And this is the tricky part right here. And I think that the teams have adapted and started running the settings a little bit lower, but you can see the nose of the Racebird is kind of ramping up on the backside of some of these waves, and that unhooks the entire boat and slows them down. So she's navigating it much better than she was earlier in the day, but it's looking tough out there.
It's still tough out there, but yeah, mostly dealing with it. There was a little bit more drag, and she's going through the second sector. It's reasonable. I think she's doing quite a respective lap compared, but it's not going to be quite as quick as the lap she did earlier. But she's dealing with it. You can sort of see it on her face. I'm going to cope with this.
She's definitely one of the tougher competitors out there. Very friendly, but not afraid to stick it to you. So I'm sure she's trying her best to make that Racebird do what she wants. But at the end of the day, watercraft just don't operate like that. But she's making it work.
That's impressive. So it's not as quick as she did earlier when it was a little less bumpy. But a 120.0, that is still an impressive time. Certainly faster than anybody third or lower. So they have done very well, and as ever we always expect Team Brady to be competitive, and they are proving it to be competitive again, and Team Brady will definitely be going through into the final part of qualifying.
There's been plenty of races where a team doesn't qualify well and they win the overall, or a team qualifies bad and they win the overall. So it's not to say that, you know, they don't have a shot at coming back tomorrow, or one of the teams at the lower rank doesn't have a shot at winning tomorrow. So everything could get turned on its head at any time.
And this is the team, of course, that they're battling with more than any other, really, in terms of the championship, because they are close, first and second. This one's first, they were second coming into this event, and now we've got the opportunity to see how Sarah Price gets on with her second run. They should be certainly safe to go through to Q4 and hand it over, but let's just see what time she can do.
Her ride height looks good. She's moving pretty smoothly across this start-finish straight here, so hopefully she can maintain that all the way around. She's on and off the boost a little bit, probably because of the rough water conditions, but if she really is having a trim problem, the boost can also kind of amplify that problem, so they may want to be a little particular in how they use it, but hopefully they can figure it out.
Very good first sector. So let's see, in this particular group, that's a good first sector, but here we are into that very challenging.
She's really slowed down here
Yeah.
coming out of that corner there. I'm not sure if she's having a technical problem, but when she came around that first corner, she really stuffed the wing and the nose down into the water, and it just let all of her momentum go. So my guess is we're having a technical issue right now, but it's really hard to say out in these rough conditions.
I was wondering if she's almost trying on purpose not to go too mad, just to stop it bouncing around. But yeah, it did look a bit strange, and she has, I'm sure she's lost some time as a result, because that was definitely a very slow second sector, as you say. So maybe it was a technical issue.
Yeah, it's hard to say until we hear from the teams later, but she definitely looks like she's having a hard time, but it may be mostly just the conditions, Ben. It looks really rough out there. That particular sector is very difficult to navigate. The race birds are kind of pulling all over the place, but tough one for Westbrook, but anything can happen.
Well, that one's a 26.56, but earlier she did a faster lap at a 1:21.9, so you would think she would be safe. I mean, it would, yeah, she is safe basically in that third place. If you're in fourth position, then you could be at risk, of course. It's always possible. We'll see with the remaining boats still coming out to see how this all works out. Teams at risk at the moment, though, as you can see, are Drogba and Aoki. And it is Aoki heading out now to try and improve on that, with Sara Mziavaz had a tough time with her first run in this section. Now she's got to really try and put it all together.
More than likely, she's had a chat with her team. They've talked to her about the settings. They've talked to her about her line choice. And so hopefully she can pull together a faster lap now and pull them out of this bottom position that they're in right now. So far, she's looking okay. The boat's definitely kissing the waves a lot more than she would probably like it to be, and it's definitely slowing her down here, Ben.
It is, yes. So it isn't looking as though it's going to be particularly rapid. Is she going to be able to get herself out of that lower group? I'm not sure, but she will be giving it everything, and we've seen some great talent from her in the past as well. Sector 1 at 25.1 seconds is not bad, but it's not really enough to get up into that top 4. It could certainly improve on the distance she is right down at the bottom in 6th place. As you can see, 14 seconds behind at this stage.
That particular corner is especially tricky there, because if you're trying to corner on the face of the wave, it's going to push you wherever it wants. So I think the pilots that have done well there are the ones that are kind of drifting around the corner instead of trying to turn right at that smart mark. And so you could kind of tell Sarah tried to corner, and the wave kind of pulled her around a little bit, and that disturbs the boat. But she looks like she's having a little bit of trouble out there. It's most likely the condition in the setting. I'm hoping there's nothing wrong with the race bird, because Danny looked really good earlier.
There is a chance, you know, to get out of the bottom 6 and into the top 4. Can she do it? Because she's not a long way off. She's coming across the... Yes, she's done it. She's gone 3rd. It is a close battle in that group. She's pushed Westbrook down to 4th, actually, by a tiny margin. So that actually was very well done, wasn't it?
It was definitely not looking good earlier, but she managed to pull something smooth out of the bag. But we do have some other teams, I think, left to go. So there's still a risk that we could see someone leapfrog at the end here, but definitely a better performance from Sarah that time around.
Well, yeah, it is Drogba still to go, who could still jump up. And, of course, that could put Westbrook under pressure as well, because they could lose a place if it goes really rapidly. Let's see how this goes then for Tara Pacheco. Heads off. Just on full throttle. Where will she use the boost as she comes up to the line itself? She will probably start to use the boost up at this stage. Yeah, there we go.
Looking pretty smooth so far. You know, definitely really rough on this approach, but she was smart to not activate the boost until she had the boat kind of stable to keep it from getting too disturbed. But hard to say how she's looking right here, because it's just so rough out there.
It is so demanding, and it keeps changing virtually every time they go out. When we get into Q4, it could be different again. Who knows? But through into that first part, and that's a decent first sector, actually. That's very comparable to what we've seen from others. It's now this sector that often determines whether you're going to be in the battle or not. Are Team Westbrook actually at a bit of risk here? We will find out. Needs to be very well done through this section.
The condition on the first half of that sector looked a lot smoother. It didn't seem like she had too much trouble getting around, so she may have just gotten little bit lucky there because it looks a lot flatter than it did earlier when some of the other teams are out, or even in her earlier lap. So looking much better for Tara Pacheco right now.
I think she's in a reasonable shape. She could be contesting to get out of that risk and get into the Q4. Is this going to be enough to be able to do that? Can she beat Westbrook? She's coming up towards the line, and it's going to be a tight battle. It's an impressive performance. Yes, she's done it. She's gone third, and Westbrook are out. Westbrook and Monaco, which is bizarre because Westbrook and Monaco have been so rapid.
I think Monaco may have one more lap.
Ah, yes, Monaco have one more.
There's still a chance for
That's
Monaco
right.
to leapfrog up, but it's not looking good for Westbrook. I did just hear from the paddock that Sarah Price was reporting having issues with throttle. It looks like she was not getting maximum power output from her race bird, which is why it probably looked slow when we were looking at it earlier. So this is not looking good for Westbrook. They do have time to fix any technical issues before the races tomorrow, but just not how you want to start your weekend. But there's still a chance that we could see Team Monaco leapfrog their way out of this risky position.
And if they do, they'll knock Aoki out. But for Westbrook, it's the first time this year they haven't made it into Q4. So that is a big blow for Team Westbrook, and of course leading the championship. There are some points on offer when we get into qualifying, although of course it is tomorrow, the racing, that really gives you the big points. On board then, let's see how this is going to go for Max Noche.
Looking at Tara Pacheco's lap earlier, there's a possibility that the wave conditions have flattened out just enough to maybe give Monaco the opportunity for a faster lap here. And if we see that happen, it could be a big upset.
First sector really quick. You're right.
Looking good. The water looks like it's flattened out quite a bit.
You're absolutely right. I'm amazed how quickly the water changes here. We go from ups and downs all the time, but that was a very good first sector. I know this sector's tricky, but look, it's looking very smooth.
Very good. He may have just timed it just right to where these waves are not going to upset him too much. You know, he's getting into the chop a little bit there, but the boat's still moving forward. He's looking very good right now, Ben.
He is looking good. So Team Aoki are at risk, down in fourth place at the moment. They could be pushed down by Team Monaco. We've seen Team Monaco delivering brilliantly well today at various different times, and for Team Monaco to make it into the final part of qualifying, it looks potentially possible here today as he comes up towards the line. Monaco down in sixth, but it's moving up to first.
There it is.
Well done to Team Monaco. That has made them go through into Q4, the opportunity to score points, and of course have some great starting positions tomorrow. But for Team Aoki, oh, you've got to feel for Team Aoki. They have missed out. They and Westbrook are the two teams that are not going through to the next stage.
At the end of the day, I think this was all about the conditions. We saw on those last two laps, you can especially tell with Team Drogba, who Tara has struggled all throughout the day with slower lap times. When her lap time suddenly spiked to such a good performance, that's an indicator that the conditions have cleared up pretty quickly, and we saw that with Team Monaco as well.
Well, an impressive performance indeed by Max Noche.
Hi Max, it's Anna here on TV. Really great job out there. Did you guys find some magic, or are the conditions getting smoother out there? Hi Max, Anna here with TV. Did you guys find some magic in the settings, or are things looking smoother out there?
Yeah, the condition was quite rough. On the first lap, I didn't get lucky with a wash, but in this lap we can combine everything. It was great. I mean, I was pushing to a max because we want to go through the final to have the best spot for the quali. So let's see. We'll keep pushing. Now it's Urban turn. I trust her, so we will see.
Great work out there. You guys are looking great. The momentum's building, and no better place to do it than your home race. Good job.
Yeah, that was really good. And the fact, as you say, that Team Monaco are now going to be in the battle for the top spot in qualifying. And it's not just getting points today, because you don't get a lot of points, but they are important, but also having a great starting position going into the first race tomorrow. Yes, you have to keep delivering, because your starting positions will then rely on where you finish in each race. But it's a fantastic start for them. Well done that they have managed to get through into the final part of qualifying. But for Team Aoki, I do feel for them. For Danny Kloss and for Sarah Mazir, who has... Yes, just got married is now Sarah Mazir-Vaz. You can see how she is very sad that they haven't made it into the final part of qualifying.
It's like I was saying earlier, it's really tough because she had such a good qualifying time earlier, and then in her second session, she put out one of the slowest lap times of the day, and that kind of whiplash can be really tough to recover from, but they have a whole day tomorrow to try and bring it back.
And yeah, we shall see how the final part of qualifying does go in a little while, when they will all be out there competing once again. It'll be much the same story. It'll be the 4 fastest that we have enjoyed from Q3 that will each get 2 more runs to see who can set the pace. And it is so unpredictable because every time we go out and see them out there, it is a different situation that they have to cope with. So the experience that they have is all important. But well done to Max Noche there, who has managed to set such an impressive time and get them into Q4.
I'm really looking forward to this next session because, you know, looking at those last 2 qualifying laps, we saw a huge change in the lap time. So if that continues, we could be going even faster.
Where do we end up? Where do we come from? Where do we end up?
Well, great stuff, and a chance to catch up with some of those down there after all the actions of Q3. Let's go back down to Taylor.
Sarah Price, what a qualifying session that was. Honestly, we were sitting here watching. We had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. You didn't look the strongest out there, but I don't think that was you. Tell me a little bit about what was going on with the race bird.
Yeah, when I was going to take off the line, it was jumping trim tremendously, and I was like, guys, I don't know what's going on. And so I started the lap kind of not sure if my trim was even going to be working, and it was just extremely rough on top of that. But we recollected, we did a throttle reset, and we thought we fixed the problem going into my second lap, and I felt really good starting, and then we oversped. And when the prop comes out of the water, it does a reset, and so it basically cut all power to the boat while I had like about 20% power for half the track. And I was like, no, I was going so fast on that first part, and then that happened. So that was a bummer. Just wasn't, I guess, our qualifier for me.
Well, as we know, qualifying doesn't particularly show the results when we head into race day. It does help for those extra points, but you guys are doing okay right now on the top of the ladder.
Yeah, it's not the end of it for us. We just have to make it to the final and then figure out the rest from there.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
So sweaty, I can understand that, because you were saying how hot it can be in the boat when you're piloting there. Let's take a look at the result then of Q3, so that we have now determined the 4 that will go into the final part. Monaco setting the pace at the end there from Team Brady, with Blue Rising in 3rd and Drogba in 4th. But the eliminated teams, you've got a feel for both of them. Team Aoki showing great pace earlier, and Team Westbrook, these championship leaders, failing to make it into this final part of qualifying that is coming up shortly. And the times just varying by little bits here and there due to the nature of the water, and it keeps on changing, and we shall see if it changes again as we get ready for Q4. And we've always got lots of boats coming in and out, which is fun to see, but there's a lot of work going on to see who's going to get through to the next stage. Let's go back down to Taylor.
Coming out of the boat and the excitement, you guys pulled that off at the last lap. We weren't sure what was going to happen. You knocked some really strong competitors out, but you're here in Monaco, and Monaco's right there in it to win it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we were P5, and I say, I mean, in that place we could not go through, and so I say, you know what, I'm gonna push whatever I can. So I pushed to the max, and it worked. I mean, I finished P1, so happy about it. I mean, this here is our home race, so yeah, I'm super proud.
And this is really exciting. We're heading into this next qualifying session. This is where it matters. This is the points. What does Oba need to do to get it done just like you did?
But I think we have a pretty solid day. So actually, she just have to do what she knows what to do. So she's just gonna push, and it's gonna be okay.
Congratulations, Max. Great run.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm convinced that Oban Duncan will be very happy to be back out, because she's been showing some very good pace throughout qualifying. In the meantime, though, we saw some fun and games in Q3 with slightly different conditions out there. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from that part of qualifying.
What's a lap, Tom? What's a lap? 190. Oh my god, that's brilliant.
side was quite nice. And some sugar. Oh no, further down, sorry. This way. Decide whether we want to be here, whether we want to get back. Et donc vous avez fait du tour là-bas. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm in K2. Oh yeah. I'll go back to next time. Well, should we do what it is? Yeah. Not against it. Tomorrow after the evening. I didn't even bother it. Oh, no one is. Because everything even like my own I didn't even know. Mainly because I bought walked all the way and I walked halfway up. Since you walked there. No, I've had it. No, hold together. You don't have any, we have Harry. Which is why last year I don't think the brand is Harry though. Yeah, but every country I go to,
Hello and welcome. We are getting ready for the final part of qualifying in the fourth round of the UIN E1 World Championship presented by PIF, taking place in Monaco, bordered by France on three sides, with one side bordering the Mediterranean Sea, and that's where we are looking forward to seeing the four boats going out to compete as top qualifiers to score points and be in great positions tomorrow. So we have Team Blue Rising with John Peters, we have Team Drogba with Michael Wilkinson, Team Brady, one of the great teams in this history of this, of winning championships, Sam Coleman's doing it this time, and from Monaco, Team Monaco. It's so wonderful that Team Monaco in their first season of E1 are in this final qualifying session with Open Duncan, and she's been doing a fantastic job so far. So we are very much looking forward to all the fun and games of all of this, and there are many of good stories. Team Blue Rising haven't qualified higher than 7th so far this season, but they have done well here at Monaco in the past, last year they were actually the second fastest qualifiers to Team Brady, and funnily enough they're both in this final part of qualifying, so that is something that we are very much looking forward to. Now I've got former E1 pilot and racer Anna Glennon alongside me, and we have seen such changes in the water and how it changes, how the pilots have to deal with it. We still don't really know how it's going to be in this final part.
Based on my experience, Monaco can be the most interesting and constantly changing set of conditions that these drivers are going to see all year long. Looking at this final session that we have here today, I personally think that we're going to see a toss-up between Micah Wilkinson on Team Drogba and Oban Duncan on Team Monaco based on how they've been driving earlier in the day. Team Drogba really put themselves in a good position to put their faster pilot, Micah, in this final session. He's been consistently one of the fastest pilots in qualifying, and I think they have a good shot at taking this home, which would be a huge victory for them considering the struggles that they've had this season. And then looking at Team Monaco, what a big deal it would be for Team Monaco to take home the qualifying win in their first home race.
Indeed. Well, let's see how it all comes together as the session is just about to get underway, and it will be Micah Wilkinson for Drogba who is going to be heading out first, but there is no panic, they can just choose. There we go. Right, here we go. So Micah Wilkinson, who getting into the top part of qualifying, hasn't been the fastest qualifier anywhere this year. They have done it once in the past. Let's see how Drogba get on.
Right away, I'm noticing that things are looking flatter than they did earlier, which hopefully is going to lend well to these pilots. But we'll see Micah's drive as he's headed across the start-finish line here, looking okay. When he got on the boost, it definitely upset the race bird a little bit, but I think he's got it under control.
Drogba as a team have qualified well here at Monaco, actually, at the previous events, because they qualified third here last year and in 2024, which was the very opening season of E1. Let's see how it goes. And the turn, can he do the turn neatly?
That start straight away looks substantially smoother than it has been earlier in the day, so that hopefully is going to lend well to Micah's time here. This particular corner and this section of the track here has been the roughest part, and we see that right now as Micah's trying to navigate his way through the backside of those waves, but he's looking pretty good.
And this is such a good opportunity for the Drogba team because they've had a tough time in scoring points this year. They are down at the bottom of the championship table at the moment, 10th on 20 points. So let's see if he can put the times together. There could be a chance to score a few points today and be in a great position for the racing tomorrow.
One of the smoothest drives through that sector. Big one there. He tried to corner a little bit too hard under speed there, but he's still looking pretty good. This is his first lap of the session. So right now as it stands, I think he's looking pretty good, and the water's looking a lot smoother.
Okay, so we may see being back to faster times than we have done for a little while. He's going to be around 120, isn't he? Across the line, yeah, just underneath 120. It's a 119.7, and as you say, until we get a few boats out in each session, we really can't tell what the target is. How do you think he's looking? Satisfied or not? He will get another run.
I think first lap is always tricky because, you know, the last time he was around, it was really rough. They come back, they got to reset the settings again. So he just did that. He's going to go cool off, and I would expect to see a faster lap from Micah later on, so long as the conditions stay as smooth as they are right now.
He puts himself in as energetic, passionate, and never say die. He's having a go at it. Let's see how the others now react to this. So next up, it will be Team Blue Rising and John Peters, one of the most experienced campaigners in E1. And we gather that he's been taking some ice and putting it in pockets and up his sleeves to try and cool down a bit.
Monaco's definitely one of the hottest stops that we have this year. The cockpit can get over 100 degrees just from sitting out in the sun. So John's got the right idea, trying to keep cool while driving, because it can help you keep a level head as well. And I definitely have been there as well, you know, trying to sneak some ice cubes into the cockpit. So whatever you can do to stay cool.
Yeah, it is fascinating. This is one of the hottest for the pilots here at Monaco. So riding on board with him right now, looking at the levels and the bounce.
He got into a couple big rollers there. You could see the nose kind of slam down. I think he was a little too aggressive on his ride height there and just fell off the foil there. So slowed him down a little bit, but he's still maintaining the momentum, so all's not lost yet.
Okay, so he's in the mix at the moment. 25.3 in that first sector. That's okay. Not the fastest yet, but it's similar in many ways. And John Peters is very adjustable, knows how to change things, make it work.
In terms of on-water experience, John's probably one of the most experienced pilots we have, not in the Racebird, but just in powerboat racing, watercraft in general. So if anybody can adapt to these conditions, I would expect it to be John. But if he's not feeling in tune with the Racebird today in these conditions, there may not be much he can do. It's looking very rough out there right now. He definitely went for a little bit of a ride through there, more so than Micah did on the previous lap. So John's really going to have to put in max effort on this last corner if he wants to catch up to Micah.
You're right, absolutely. He's got so much experience of competing in boats since he was such a youngster, doing so many different forms and getting a lot of success. So the target to beat is a 119.708. He's not quite going to make that. He's into the 20s, so it's not an ideal run, even though the final sector works reasonably well. It's a 120.7, so it's almost exactly 1 second off the spot set by Micah Wilkinson.
I mean, maybe it was some of those ice cubes in his pockets that weighed him down. I don't know, man.
Adding to the weight, yes. You have a minimum weight with these boats with the pilots of 1,300 kilos. And so obviously the pilots do weigh differently, but the teams have to be careful to make sure that they're always at that minimum.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, they actually put ballast weight underneath the seats to make sure that everybody's even. So I always felt very bad for my mechanics. I was consistently the lightest pilot on the grid by a lot, and they would have to put in tons of weight every time I got in the boat. And I had a rule with them where, you know, if I was slower than my counterpart, I personally carried the weight to the check-in. And let me tell you, it was very heavy. But I don't think anybody else on the grid this year had to carry as much weight as I did.
I can imagine. Right, well, Team Brady head out there now with Sam Coleman. Many times they have been top qualifiers at events. One time this year so far. This is round 4, so they've had one top qualifying performance so far, but they've been fastest here as well at Monaco in the past.
I'm sure with Team Westbrook removed from this final session, the Team Brady is kind of seeing a little opening there for them potentially to try and catch up. So, you know, it's already looking very good for Sam Coleman looking at Sector 1. It's definitely a lot smoother, which is going to lend well to the pilot. So we'll see what Sam can pull out of the bag here.
Absolutely, yeah, this is going to be very interesting, and it is an opportunity to just narrow that gap very slightly to Westbrook at the moment. They've got a 12-point gap as they run second in the championship at the moment. They've got a chance to score some 3 points if they are the fastest qualifiers today.
We've seen Brady really struggle with this particular section all day long, getting almost sideways even, and this has been the best looking run for them today. Looking good in Sector 2 for Sam. I think this is going to be a fast lap.
It's looking effective. 119.7 is the time to beat, and he's on target to beat that. Let's see where he's going to bring it across the line. It's definitely looking to be the fastest. Yes, it is. It's going to be a 1:17.4. Very impressive. That puts him more than 2 seconds faster than Drogba. We've got one more to go though, and I can tell you that Team Monaco with Oban Duncan is very rapid, but that's a happy move by Sam Coleman, who's done a great job there to set the pace so far. Remember, they will all get a second flying lap to do as well, and we've still got to see the first for Team Monaco, Oban Duncan, when they have been very impressive all day so far.
Looking at the angle that we had of that second sector, I think that Team Brady happened to pass through there when the waves were a little bit shorter and not quite as big and like heavy gaps as what we saw earlier. So I think Sam got a little bit lucky there, but managed to navigate it really well. So we'll see this time around, are the waves going to stay that way and stay manageable, or are they going to get rougher for Oban Duncan?
So it's a 20-year-old British racer, Oban Duncan, who is setting now with Team Monaco, and it's the first year that Team Monaco as a team have competed in the E1, and their best qualifying so far has been third at Lake Como, and it was Oban who did it on that occasion.
On this particular run, she had a little bit more of a rough start. You can see her kind of surging through the waves there, but she's keeping the momentum moving forward. It looked like when she got under boost that it kind of upset the Racebird a little bit. So she seems like she's keeping more momentum, but it definitely could have been a little bit smoother for her to start.
Okay, well, let's see how she can develop it over the next section. It's still a decent first sector. It's on the games, it's in 24 seconds, so that could be part of the game, couldn't it?
I think that Sam's first sector and that first corner were very strong, so I think where Oven could surpass him is here on this second sector. Wow, all the way out of the water for Oven Duncan, but still maintaining her speed there. Very, very good driving from Oven, keeping it under control, but I don't think it's going to be what she needs to surpass that time that Sam Coleman had earlier. And like I said, I think that that was just luck on Sam Coleman's part. He passed through that sector when there wasn't as much rough water there, and Oven was really trying to push it, and it got
Again, look at that. That was another big dip. And you're right, because I think it's costing her time. She has lost a bit in that second sector. I don't think she's going to be able to go for that 1:17.4. So where will she go amongst these top four getting into qualifying? Actually, I think it's going to be the slowest. Yes, it is. So she is now fourth for Team Monaco. And you don't get points for finishing fourth, but they all get another run to go.
So something that came up earlier when Westbrook was struggling was they were talking about the prop sensor and the boat turning off because they overspun their prop. And when you're looking at Olben coming through this rough section here, we'll see the Racebird come completely out of the water, and you'll see the propeller is in the air. And the issue with that right here, as she comes up out of the water, you see the propeller is spinning, and when it comes back down into the water, that's like hitting the brakes. The propeller is not intended to go from a high speed to a low speed as it re-encounters that drag from the water. So that can slow you way down. It could potentially break the propeller if she hits the water hard enough after being out. And the other thing it can do, like Sarah Price mentioned, is it can confuse the computer in the Racebird to the point where it puts it into like a limp mode, where the computer is saying, why is the propeller spinning so fast? Mayday. And that is what happened to Westbrook earlier today. Sarah Price lost the power that she needed. Open was thankfully able to ride it out there, but definitely not the conditions she was looking for.
Well, that's really interesting information, and thank you, Anna. That's so good to know about the propeller, and it was a great view from our cameras to see that that propeller was way up in the air and then coming back down in the water. So that has definitely had an effect. So the standings at the moment, Team Brady are currently fastest, Drogba second fastest, Blue Rising third, and Monaco down in fourth. But this can change. They all get one more run in an attempt to go even faster. And obviously at the moment, Team Brady have a good advantage of 2.3 seconds. Oh, we've got a red flag, so there will be a delay. There will be a little delay. We don't know what that has caused that yet. Sometimes it's communications.
Typically the red flag, when there's not actually Racebirds on the track, it means there's usually a safety issue. They want everybody to stop so that there are no additional safety issues. It could be a comms issue. Maybe we've lost contact with the radios. Maybe there's a leisure boat on the track somewhere. We did have quite a big yacht enter the track last year. It looks like we've lost a smart mark, or it's at least drifted, most likely because of the conditions. So that's a huge deal in qualifying, because that can drastically change the track. So if we have a smart mark that has wandered off the track some from its original location, that could vary greatly pilot to pilot. So as an example, if Sam Coleman had a really fast lap, one lap, and that marker, a smart mark, has drifted, and the next pilot goes and has to go a longer distance around that smart mark, that could greatly impact those lap times.
It's a good point. So this is going to have to be sorted. Bravo boy they're replacing apparently, so we shall see how that changes things for them.
This is good for the pilots, though, because then they know for sure that there's not any disadvantages happening. So it'll take them just a moment to re-rack here. What's really interesting about the smart marks in E1, and unlike any other water sport racing in the world, the smart marks are actually GPS positioned, so they can maintain their position throughout the race event without having any heavy anchors or anything dragging on the sea floor. And that makes a big difference, because we don't want to be damaging the areas that we're in when we're racing.
Absolutely. And tomorrow, of course, they'll be going around other ones, because we will be doing long lap and short lap versions, won't we, as well? Because today we're just sticking with the main lap, obviously, but when we get into the races, they have to do a short lap and a long lap as well.
The addition of the strategy laps is really a game changer, because depending on when you choose to take them, you get clean water, you get rough water, you could get stuck in traffic, you could break away from it. So again, tomorrow is going to be completely different when all those extra variables are added. But for now, the pilots are focused on getting their fastest lap.
So the work is going on now as they can get this moved and reset, presumably. It just takes a few moments before they will be able to go out. So the pilot's trying to cool her down a little bit, trying to get some air through.
Sam Coleman opening the cockpit there. He's very fortunate he's so tall. I could never quite get my cockpit open because I could barely reach it. But yeah, you'll see he's opened the cockpit there to try and get some fresh air in there. Like I said earlier, the cockpits can reach over 100, I almost said 100 miles per hour, over 100 degrees.
Wow.
Because they are sitting out in the sun all day. Teams have come up with creative ways to try and keep the cockpit cool in between races with fans, leaf blowers, anything that you can imagine. But once the pilot's in the cockpit, they just start cooking.
I can imagine. It must be a tough one, and especially when you've got to wait out there as they have to right now. But this is important for them. The circuit needs to be just reassessed and sorted so that they can get out for the final part of qualifying. And at least it's fair for all of them in that it's not being done after one person's done one lap. They've all done their first lap. Now it's going to be changed, and then they'll all do a second flying lap.
I am curious to see if Oban Duncan's last lap was impacted by the smart mark drifting, if we'll see any kind of changes, if they'll petition or protest that they had an unfair lap because a smart mark was drifting. So we'll have to see which smart mark it was and see if there was any kind of protest about it. If the race director deems that it was unfair for Team Monaco, they may delete that last lap and give her a new opportunity to go again. But so far, it's not looking like that. So I think that the times are going to stay where they are, and we're going to see these guys go out for their second lap.
Okay, well, that's something that always can come up afterwards, isn't it, where teams can put in protests and discover whether they can get something changed or not. But that is part and parcel of E1. And totally understandable. In the meantime, though, they just have to be patient and wait and just look after the boats and not do anything silly, just to make sure that when they get going, they can do it well. So it's an opportunity for us to catch up with a few who are not out in the boats. Let's go back down to Taylor.
Michelle, we're here in the pits watching this Q4 under a little bit of a red flag, but let's talk about how Team Blue Rising is doing. You guys are just kind of flying under the radar, which can be a really good thing, right? You're not running super high, but you also can't fall very far. So you guys are doing really excellent right now. What's John's mentality like in the boat right now?
Honestly, we did a great job with the strategy, having John, Jay, Sayan, and everyone. We really worked hard on finding and tuning that setting for it to work with what you guys see as a condition out there. It's pretty rough, it's unpredictable, but I believe and I'm confident we reach a point where it's a good boat, it's running well.
It definitely looked well. Your last qualifying session, you were stellar out there. You put out some really good times. And I know the relationship with you and John, there's a lot to learn between each pilot. What have you learned from him so far?
Honestly, it's a new team, as you know, and when you join a new team, you guys need to kind of give it 3-4 races to align on the language, you know. What I notice is everyone has something to bring to the table, and it's pretty impressive. And you know, John and his history and his record in boat racing is just impressive, you know. So we're learning a lot from each other and from the team as well.
This is definitely a dynamic team, and as you know, TBR, they have luck here in Monaco. They took the win last year in 2025. What's it going to take to do it in 2026?
Let's see. Let's see.
Best of luck. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Well, we are getting ready for this to begin again for their second run, because we've got the green flag now. But it's a complete restart. Okay, so we've just been informed that the times that have been done already have been taken away, and they will all get 2 separate laps.
So like I was saying earlier, more than likely that smart mark drifted far enough to impact the overall lap time. So it's going to be interesting. Are we going to see these guys go faster now knowing that the smart mark is hopefully back where it belongs? So kind of a lifesaver for Oban Duncan, who struggled there with a slower lap time. But we'll see, is Sam Coleman or Micah going to put down a faster time now knowing that the track was slightly out of alignment?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, but they've also managed to experience what the water is like at the moment. So that gives them a little bit of an advantage. And that's a decent first sector.
We've got Micah out there now. It looks like they have replaced that smart mark there. So I imagine it was probably broken, unfortunately. But Micah's got a good run started here. He got a little bit out of the water there, but not too bad. And he's got the race bird in just the right spot where he's kind of hovered above the water. He's not getting the belly too wet, and he's keeping that momentum moving forward.
So Team Drogba, which have had a tough time this year, can they really get something out of all of this? It is possible. Michael Wilkinson's working very hard on this, and let's see what sort of times we're going to be getting now, because we've been seeing them under the 1 minute 20 seconds. It's going to be under again, I think, just about, yes, 1:18.5. So that is what sets the initial time before we get the other three teams to do their first flying laps, as we have started this session effectively from the beginning now.
It looked like Micah did a slightly better lap time than earlier before they reset the session, so that could be a beneficial little blessing for Micah there, as he got a little bit more time on the water to get organized before these last two laps here. So we'll see how the rest of the group looks, but Ben, I really think it's getting a lot smoother out there. The lap times are looking good. The race birds aren't moving around as much as they were. It definitely looks like the trickiest sector at this time is going to be the second sector, where those waves are not only coming against the shore but also going away from the shore. That's where we were seeing Oban Duncan catch a lot of air. The first sector of the track looks a lot smoother than it did earlier today.
So let's go with Team Blue Rising, one of the most experienced boat racers in the world, with John Peters, racing boats since he was 9 years old, but he's now in his, just coming up for his mid-40s, the American. 65 boating speed records, an incredible record he has, but let's just see, can they compete? So that time to beat is a 1:18.5. Let's just see how the sectors go.
So far, he's already looking a little smoother than he was earlier. He's only had one or two big slams on the start straight, whereas earlier he had quite a few. So he's looking pretty good so far. He needs to try and keep the boat dry through this corner, try and keep it up out of the water to try and maintain his speed here and avoid extra drag. So he's looking okay, but I think where we're going to see the time really make a difference is in this sector he's entering right now.
Yeah, you're right. This is such a crucial part. It's similar time in first sector, just a fraction slower so far than we saw from Michael Wilkinson, but this sector is so important. That gives us a lovely view of just how the boat is dealing with this.
He's looking a lot smoother through this particular area than Micah was. Micah's race bird was a little bit all over the place, and it looks like he has put down a faster sector. So if he can maintain this all the way around that last corner, he could be looking at a better time than he put down earlier.
So getting that dip down into the turn, tight as possible, but keeping the speed up, that's what he's trying to do. Good acceleration using the boost out of the corner. So the time to beat 1:18.581, and it looks as though he could be just about the same. No, he's a little slower, 1:19.36 in the end. So he's second fastest of the two that have run so far.
I do think that was still a faster time than his time earlier, so this unfortunate mishap with the smart mark may have played to his advantage. He still has one lap to go. He could clean it up. I do think he lost most of his time on that first straightaway approach. He definitely had a few good slams there, so if he can get a better drive, I think he could shave some time off the top of that lap.
Yeah, you're right, because his middle sector was actually quicker, but it was both the first and final sectors that he lost out a little bit, so that could come back in his second run. We shall see. We've still got the first run to go for Team Brady now, for Sam Coleman, with all the experience and success that Team Brady have had in the past.
This is going to be the big one for me, because Sam put down a fast lap earlier. Is this reset going to help him and he's going to do well like he did earlier, or is it going to hurt him and he's going to lose that faster time? That can be so frustrating to a leader when there's a reset. So Sam just needs to keep his head cool, run another smooth lap, and if it's anything like his previous lap, he should be in a good position.
Under slightly different procedures last year, they set the fastest time in qualifying. It wasn't done in quite exactly the same way it is done here, but it's all about these two individual laps in this session. This is the first one.
Sam's approach is looking pretty good here. He's riding a lot lower than John Peters was on the ride height, but he's looking very smooth. So hopefully it was a little bit of risk management there, riding lower to keep the speed up. Looking good in sector one, so I do think that strategy paid off.
Yeah, that's a 23.3 in the first sector. That is the fastest, not by miles, but it is a good first sector. So now this all-important run down the straight here, and it is looking quite smooth, isn't it?
As far as we've seen, this is one of the better runs down this lane. He is getting a little bit squirrely right here, but he's keeping the momentum up, and that fast first sector might save him. Good looking sector two here, looking very good for Sam Coleman. If he can keep this up, I think he'll be in a good position.
Yeah, he's going to be in the battle, I think. He's got a 1:18.5 to try and beat, and he's taking the tight line, and then he'll get the power on exit. Let's see, can he get to beat what Michael Wilkinson has done so far for Team Drogba? 1:18.5 is the time to beat. It's going to be pretty close. Coming up to it, 17:18. He's not quite going to do it, no. Actually, 1:19.9. So actually, he's slower than Blue Rising as well.
Looking at that last sector, I think that their decision to swing wide and try to slingshot it might have been the reason why they lost out on that last sector there. The other teams have been keeping that last buoy a lot tighter. Sam swung wide and effectively increased the distance that he had to travel, but he's trying to keep the speed up. So the idea was there, but it might just not be effective in the conditions that we're seeing today.
I think you're right. It is definitely that final sector that cost him. So we've now got Oban Duncan, who struggled when we tried to do this before. But this is a complete restart, remember? So there's a real chance here for Oban Duncan, for Team Monaco, to put together a good lap, because they have shown great pace here all day so far.
This is huge for Oban and Team Monaco because they get another opportunity to try and reset. She did not have the best lap earlier. She was looking like she was going to be in the bottom of this session, but now they have a chance to reset and try this again. If she maintains smooth momentum around the track, keeps the race bird flying nice and steady, she should be able to deliver a fast lap here.
A lovely view of her getting across the line and heading down through the first sector down in towards the first corner. A little dip there, but otherwise looking okay.
Pretty good approach there. Like you said, she had one really good little fall off of the foil that definitely slowed her down, but she's keeping it up. She's definitely got some smoother corners, looking good in sector 1. She's got a purple there, and she's keeping the boat pretty dry coming around these corners, but this is the hard part. This is where she lost all her momentum last time around. If she can keep the boat driving well through this section, look at those rollers she's coming off the backside of like a ramp jump, but she is keeping it pretty steady, looking good.
She is looking good, but it is this sector, as you say, that is so important. She's on the pace in sector 1, just a fraction faster, and that's good. It's not far off, but maybe not quite enough to go fastest. So how she deals with this final sector, it's going to have to be really done very strong if she's going to get back to the top level.
She definitely ran that second sector a lot more conservative on the settings, but this is what I was talking about. They are taking that last corner very sharp and just driving straight to the finish line, and I think that has been an advantage for them today, and it's looking okay on her time.
Yeah, it's a 1:19.8, and that puts her in 3rd place, in fact. So, after the first run, it is Drogba that have set the outright pace at a 1:18.5. The Drogba team, the only team that has got into the 18. So Michael Wilkinson has done a really good job. Second fastest, Blue Rising on a 1:19.364, and it's close then between Blue Rising, Monaco and Team Brady. There's nothing really between them. So it all now comes down to how they can do their second flying lap when they're really going for it to establish who is going to get the fastest point. They get 3 points today for the fastest qualifying, and of course what they also do is get a great starting position for the opening races tomorrow.
I think that this is all going to come down to who can do damage control the best on that second sector, where we are seeing so much chop coming through there. We're seeing race birds completely out of the water. The pilot that can get through that section the fastest, I think, is going to lay down the fastest time here today.
Okay, well, let's see whether Michael Wilkinson can improve even further on what he's done. He is fastest at the moment on that 1:18.5. Hasn't set the top spot in qualifying this year, but has done in the past. Let's see whether they can make it happen.
Something that I'm noticing here is I think the water seems to be less rough because the gap between the rollers has gotten bigger, but the actual swell roller itself has gotten taller. So we're seeing these waves turn into like a ramp jump that these race birds are trying to power over the back of. So I think it is deceiving that it looks smoother, but I think those rollers are actually quite big. We'll see how Micah navigates this section here. As these rollers, he's kind of coming into the backside of them, and that can be very tricky. You can see right there, he's kind of dropping down into the backside of them and then ramping back up, but it looks like he had the setting pretty, ooh, there it is right there. That's what I was talking about, ramping up the back, but he managed to save it until the end, so I think he's looking pretty good, fast in sector 2.
Yeah, but opening sector was good, but not mega. This isn't a big difference. It's not a huge difference to what he'd already done. but of course he has already set the pace. He may well come up with a very similar time. Can he go a little quicker and make it even harder for the other teams? Can he get under that 1:18.5 he set earlier? No, not quite. He's done a 1:19.2 this time, so it is the lap from earlier that is holding him top spot, and it's still unpredictable to know whether anybody else is going to be able to beat him going into the remainder of this final part of qualifying. Let's take a look at what was going on.
You can see, like I was saying earlier, you'll see the racebird kind of teeter-totter where it's going to come up in the air and then drop down into the backside of the waves, and that's those rollers that we were talking about. I think those have gotten a lot bigger, and that's like driving a teeter-totter on the ocean here. So he really managed it very well. We saw some other pilots struggle a lot more with that earlier. So Maiko's looking pretty good. We'll have to see what these other pilots can do.
Well, let's see how it goes now. Team Blue Rising are back out with John Peters, currently in second position. So overall, 7/10, just over 7/10 away from the fastest time that Micah Wilkinson set earlier on. Totally possible to beat it. They're all incredibly close. These boats are all identical, but set up always fractionally different by each team, by each pilot that likes a different feel. And now it's just down to trying to make it work.
This is right around where John Peters was getting into some bigger rollers earlier and kind of dropping off the nose. He is dropping a little bit here, but not as bad as he was earlier. So hopefully that's going to lend well to a better sector 1 time. Yep, there it is. Much better
That's
sector
good.
1 time for John Peters. So he is looking good right now. He went a lot wider than he did earlier to keep the speed up. So he's looking good. Can he out-navigate this sector 2 faster than Micah did earlier? If he can, I think we're going to see a fast lap time from him.
Wow, this is crucial time. Of course, this is the final flying lap he gets to do today.
Big ones there. You could see the propeller wash kind of shoot up into the air, and that means that the prop is driving the boat down as he's landing back into the water, but he's still looking good. Another purple sector for him here. This could be a big one for them.
Yeah, it's close though. It's not a big difference, so we just need to watch it closely. Remember, the fastest time set earlier on was that 1:18.5. There is a chance.
He's looking good. He's elected to stay tight off that back corner there. That could make a big difference here.
Let's have a look as he comes across the line. It's close. Oh, he's done it. 1:18.3, fractionally faster. And for now, it is Team Blue Rising that have set the pace. We don't know if it's going to stay that way, but John Peters has just done a great job so far. Second fastest in qualifying here last year, currently fastest, but aware that we've still got Monaco and Brady trying to see if they can go faster now.
That was a big one for John Peters. I think ultimately that came down to line choice. Unlike his line earlier, he stayed pretty wide around that first corner and kept that speed up so that when he came through that second sector, when it was getting rough and rowdy in there, he managed to just power through it. So I think a lot of that was changing up the line choice and shaving some time down off it.
So now it's Team Brady, the twice champions in E1, currently second in the championship, and they really want some points here today, if possible, to try and close up that gap in the championship battle to Westbrook, who did not make it into this final part of qualifying where you do score some points. So here we go. Sam Coleman is going to give it his every element to try and go faster, and so far looking pretty good.
Looking pretty good so far. He spent a lot of his boost on the approach there, trying to get things up to momentum. Hit a couple big rollers on his way into the first corner, but I think he's not looking too bad. I don't think it's as good of a sector as he had previously, but he could still make that up elsewhere.
Yeah, that's not an ideal first sector. He's not quite there.
You could see the big rollers. It's dipping between the waves. You can't see the wing all the time. He's dealing with rollers really from all sides, which makes it very difficult to navigate. You can see now the bow's dropping down and then coming back up, and that's all those roller conditions. So this may not be the lap for Sam. It looks like he pulled a bad draw, and he is not going to make it around as fast this time around.
Yeah, I tend to agree, because his second sector is not shining either in terms of time. It's 28.1. That's a second and a half down, really, on where you need to be challenging John Peters. So I do not think we're going to see Team Brady taking the top spot. It's a question of, can they get any further? Because at the moment they're down in fourth place. You don't get any points at all for fourth place in the Q4 standings. And as he comes up towards the line, is this going to change their position at all? No, it doesn't. He stays down in fourth place. So there will be no points, I'm afraid, for Team Brady.
Yeah, not a great day for Team Brady, but earlier we thought they weren't even going to make it out of Q1, so it's still good for them nevertheless. But now we still have 1 lap left with Oban Duncan, so she could still pull something out of the bag and upset those top 2.
Indeed. That's what we will be looking at. And Team Brady will still be major competitive tomorrow in the races. You just know they're always consistent, but they'll be a bit frustrated they didn't get any points today because the gap between them and Westbrook will now stay at 12 points. There was a chance to bring it down to 9 points today if they could get the top qualifying point, but that hasn't happened. Here we go then, and this is Oban Duncan, who has shone here at Monaco already, and for Team Monaco, competing at Monaco, this is a very special moment.
This could be very big for Team Monaco. I'm sure Oban has a lot of pressure on her shoulders. If she surpasses John Peters in this lap, that will catapult Monaco to the top of the standings in their debut event of their home race. So I'm sure that the team has their fingers crossed right now. They've done all their little superstitious rituals, and they are hoping that Oban can pull this out of the bag.
Looking like a good float so far, isn't it?
You can see the rollers have gotten quite big so that she's kind of dipping down off the back side of them and slamming into the next one, but she's still maintaining the momentum, so she's not looking too bad. I don't think this is going to be a fastest Sector 1, but if she keeps the speed up and manages to make her way smoothly through Sector 2, she could still make something happen.
You're absolutely right, because that first sector is not the fastest, but it's not far off what we have seen. This is the sector that makes such a difference, controlling, not letting it bounce too much, not going up too high, not dipping right down into the water fully, dealing with it quite well so far.
Looking pretty smooth through there. She just got back on the boost. Yep, fastest Sector 2 for Oban Duncan, looking very good. She kept the race bird in a really happy spot where it wasn't too high, wasn't too low, and then as soon as it straightened out, she got on the boost. So now she's looking very good coming into this last corner. If she keeps this tight like she has been, I think it has a potential to make up for that crummy Sector 1.
But I'm not sure she needs a really good final sector because the time to beat is a 118.3 that John Peters has set. And, oh, 117.3, she's done it! Team Monaco have taken the top qualifying spot here at Monaco. Well done to Oban Duncan, who delivered it, as you said, in that second and third sector. She did it absolutely superbly. And that is the first time ever that Team Monaco have taken the top spot in qualifying. Remember, this is their first season as a team. It's not her first season as a team because she was with other teams before. But for Team Monaco to come to this event and take the fastest qualifying, that is brilliant.
Max said she could do it, and she did. I think, like I said earlier, she struggled in Sector 1, but she had it in her to run a smooth Sector 2 and Sector 3, and she made it happen.
Very, very efficient. Well done. Many congratulations to them.
Oban, Jet Girl here on TV, good work. It was looking a little bit sketchy at the beginning there, but you pulled it out of the bag at the end. How are you feeling?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, we're so pleased. Everyone's worked so hard on the boat. The team have been working really, really hard, and it's amazing to see us at the top today, and we'll push for tomorrow.
Great work. Don't party too hard tonight. You got a big day tomorrow. Great work, Oban.
Indeed. So that was a brilliant result for Monaco, sharing with Max Noscher, who's done a great job too. The results of qualifying here at Monaco. Team Monaco it is that have taken the pace by nearly a second from Team Blue Rising, who scored 2 points for finishing second, and Dropa, who get the final point for third fastest. And Team Brady, the challengers in the championship, very much so, down in fourth, did not manage to score points, but still showing good pace, and they will be major competitors when it comes to the racing tomorrow. So a really interesting time in qualifying 4, and we have seen lots of battles. Let's take a look back at some of those highlights. Well, what a great achievement by Team Monaco, and the applause coming as Owen Duncan brings the boat back. That was absolutely superb to take the top spot, to score the 3 points, and that is a real achievement for them. Getting an extra 3 points always helps, of course. It doesn't. I don't think that makes too much difference to where they are in the. Actually, it does. It does move them up ahead of Rafa. To be fair, so that moves them from 7th in the championship to 6th in the championship. So that has gained them well. That's good news. And of course, going into the competition tomorrow, that's when it's more important, because if you make it all the way to the final and you win final 2, then you can score 38 points on the day. And if you've got the 3 points already from today, that's even better. So there's a bigger chance for them to gain them. A fantastic job by Team Monaco at Monaco this weekend as we get ready for racing tomorrow.
Stereo English full mix.